Morning, morning, morning. Darrell Nanton, morning, sir. Ruth Fronton, morning. Jennifer Dorset, good morning. Gloria Jeffrey, morning to you. Macaroni Tony, morning. Joan Williams, Earl Tippin, Althea Allen, morning. Rena Jennings, Rude Trude, good morning. Kathy Ann Best, Ria Ed, Udani Bruce, Alberta Sampath, Pauline Buckmeyer, morning. Kathleen out there. Galen Jackson, morning. Hillbenj, David Clark, morning Val, morning to all of you guys. Eva Smith, Sharon Williams, morning Carol, Hazel Allen, morning. Get this here. This one. See what's happening here. Time and off.
Sleeping time. I was in the laboratory when somebody showed me him. Somebody said that I'm up today. The boss would take care of them. And in this crowd was singing loud, going to the convention. When we walk in, big spin and ting. Oh Lord, what a session. In the hand was a plan and he start to jam. He hit them bam bam bam. Somebody say you better like the man. He had a touch of Eric William. Hallelujah. What your position get them up to? Hallelujah. When I say okay, you know what I mean. Hallelujah. Get all your room is sleep in this country clean. Hallelujah. We can't fail. Hallelujah. Next in the tail. Hallelujah. Great is the BNM. It shall be revealed. Sleeping time. Sleeping time. Sleeping time. One nation is a one people today, a dynamic diversity. A party strong because all along we celebrate our plurality. Equality right across the board, everybody have a chance. That's why all along every place in town is locals leading the dance. We talking about the ultra-modern social infrastructure. Education become priority one on the national agenda. Hallelujah. We ain't making no dotage mistake. Hallelujah. So when them opposition get they go take. Hallelujah. I wanna say cookie, you know what I mean. Hallelujah. Bring all your food and sleep in this country clean. Hallelujah. We can't fail. 50 years on this trail. Hallelujah. Great is the DNM. It shall prevail. Sleeping time. Sleeping time. Sleeping time. Get your room now.
Morning all. Again, Alison Samuel, morning, Rosemary Headley, Glenda Hercules Christo, morning, Adriana Alexis, Ashlyn Robertson, Arthur James, DP, morning to you guys. Ruben Rogers, Anne-Marie Solomon, Doreen Henry, Shaw, all of you guys on YouTube. Morning. What appears to probably be a wet Sunday so far. Right. So let me get into issues. It's already 11:06. I'm only 10 things to do today, but we had to do the live. Yeah. So first off, I saw an article this morning, a Newsday article, speaking to a building in Port of Spain that was leased or rented by the THA sometime last year. Y'all remember Ali Augustine, the Prime Minister of Tobago, sometime last year announced, and it was first announced by Watson Duke when the PP was still in charge of the THA, that they were going to set up an office in Trinidad, something akin, according to Fali, something akin to an embassy, a Tobago embassy in Trinidad. And at this embassy, or wherever it was, it would be a resource for Tobagonians living in Trinidad who needed to do business with Tobago to get certain information and so on. Persons coming to Trinidad from abroad and who interested in getting information about Tobago, they could go there. All sort of fluff. And they identified a place called Pembroke Place, located on 24 to 26 Pembroke Street. And what the plan was that Mr. Duke would have been based in Trinidad as the Deputy Chief Secretary, and he would have been in charge of that facility. In fact, Mr. Duke would have indicated that he was the one who identified the building. And sometime after Mr. Duke would have fallen out with the rest of his colleagues, they went ahead and rented the building, which was supposed to house something akin to embassy. And they spent, the building is now up for rent because the THA, having rented it for 1 year, have changed their mind and decided they no longer want to establish an office in Trinidad, something akin to an embassy. For whatever reason, I don't know, because Fali battling with Dr. Rowley or whatever, maybe this is the first stepping stone towards separation. But whatever is the reason. So after having spent, they don't say how much it spent because the Newsday would have filed a Freedom of Information request on the THA to get information as to how much money was spent for this building that they never used. But according to the Newsday, the building is now up for rent. Yesterday, workmen put up a sign on the building for rent, indicating that, and based on Newsday's checks, the building is now being rented for $95,000 a month plus VAT. So when you add on the VAT, it works up to close to about $107,000 a month. So we can only assume that the THA were at least paying $107,000 a month for this building for 1 year that they never used, that they never occupied. In fact, the article says that Fali would have visited the building once sometime on the 8th of June. Briefly, when he was in Trinidad, he was seen leaving the basement of the building, but that was about it. So they have now decided that they will not renew the lease, which is supposed to come to an end at the end of August, early September. So they would have paid rent for this building for 1 year, probably totaling just over $1.2 million, and they never occupied it. Now, I want to ask Tobago, now I'm certain there are a lot of people in Tobago who will come and defend this, right? And say, we'll chalk it up to youthful innocence and, he's still new on the job. A year and a half later, he's still new and they're still finding their footing. But even though 3 years down the road from now, or maybe a month before the next THA election, you're probably going to have them assuming that he make a jail year, and that he and the rest of the team still out, they'll probably be on bail or whatever it is, once the police finish this investigation into AudioGate. It could be 1 month before the THA election, and you will still have people in Tobago saying, he is youthful exuberance, and he's still getting his foot wet and still learning. Yeah? These are the same people who wanted to lynch Tricky Tracy, who wanted to hang Ansel for the zip line. Yeah, the zip line. And they want back the money and they want to know what went on there and all kind of bubble and crookery. These are the people who went to the polls and decided that they're going to vote out the PNM because of the zip line. But here it is. Goodbye, Fali. Because according to the article, Watson say he don't know what went on because up until the point while he was still there, the building wasn't rented, and that it was only rented after they bust up. So over $1.2 million spent, and the building was never used. And so now they're going to bring the lease to an end. They no longer wish to establish this office. How many ex gratia payments that money could have been? To the Tobagonians, the THA workers who were promised an ex gratia payment since 2021, we are in 2023. And up to now, they didn't get the ex gratia payment yet. They couldn't find money to pay the ex gratia payment. All of these poor CPEP workers and forestry workers who, month after month, receiving their pay late because the THA have money to give all their pay on time. Never mind the fact that all of the secretaries collected their pay on time. But all they had to wait. In some cases, 2 and 3 fortnights, all they didn't get paid. But they were finding this money to pay this landlord for this building that they never used. Now, I bet you're not going to hear the UNC say anything about that. Never mind the fact that they scour the newspapers every day looking for things to bad talk Rowley and the PNM. But this, you wouldn't hear them talk about that. In fact, when the Prime Minister would have mentioned a few months ago about the building on Park Street that the government leased or rented for occupation by the DPP's office, and he indicated that the DPP refuses to occupy the building because the DPP wants them to put a fence in front of the building, which to me makes no sense, because those of you who know that building, which is the building that was previously used to house RBC Bank on Park Street, there is no way you can put a fence in front of that building, because to do that, it means that you would have to get rid that entire piece of pavement from Frederick Street to Henry Street would have to be taken up. And therefore, if you want the fence to go around onto Henry Street, down to the stretch, it would also take up a significant piece of the pavement as well, which could be an inconvenience to pedestrians. So it is impractical. Never mind the fact, they already changed the glass, bulletproof as requested, but that isn't enough. Office has indicated they're not going to occupy the building. So when Dr. Oli would have announced that, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa at one of her Monday night forum meetings called Dr. Oli a fool, that you had to be a fool to continue to pay rent for a building and they're not occupying it. And of course, my jaw dropped, and it took me a couple hours to pick it back up off the floor, because I couldn't believe I was hearing this from Kamla Prasad Bisesa. The very same Kamla Prasad Bisesa, who was Prime Minister, oversaw the rental of number 1 Alexandra Street for $43 million in rent, who oversaw the expenditure of $120 million to outfit number 1 Alexandra Street, who paid $5 million in security to secure an empty building at number 1 Alexandra Street for 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days. A building which they never occupied because, according to reports, they used to fight each other like crabs in a barrel as to who should occupy the building. They couldn't decide which ministry should go there. Right? They could not decide which ministry should be housed there. And as a result of that, every time they made a decision, okay, this ministry go in here, they spend money to outfit. Right? And then they change their mind. And they say, all right, this ministry go in here. But based on how this building is outfitted now, it wouldn't suit the needs of this particular ministry. So we had to outfit again. And then when they make up their mind, another ministry. So about 3 or 4 different ministries are supposed to go there between 2010 to 2015. And every ministry that was allocated the building, money was spent to outfit it to suit the needs of that ministry. So 120 million TT dollars, taxpayers' dollars were spent for that building. 120 for outfit, 43 on rent, that's 163, and 5 for security, 168 million. And for 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days, it was never used. Right? After that, the building that they rented in Barataria, that we still can't find, that they rented to house the CPU's office, for $53 million in rent was spent. They did that in 2012. In 2015, January of 2015 or thereabouts, a question was posed to the Minister of Finance for an update on the status of that building, given the fact that the Auditor General's report for 2013-2014 had indicated that rent was being paid and this building seemingly was not occupied. The man who answered that question was one of the 3 ministers in the Ministry of Finance, the Member of Parliament for Couva South, Rudy Indarsingh. Because apparently the $11 million man, who was the substantive Minister of Finance, Mr. Hawaii, he couldn't do the work by himself. He needed 2 assistants in the persons of Rudy Indarsingh and Vasan Bharath. So you pay a man $11 million to become the Minister of Finance, and you would think, well, if they gave all that money, he had to be damn good at what he does. But no, he needed 2 assistants. So we had 3 ministers of finance. And Rudy Indarsingh would have indicated that the reason why the building wasn't occupied is because they had not yet outfitted it. So 53 million spent and they not outfitted. So you rent a building, you ain't put nothing inside it. You ain't put a screw, not a panel, not a piece of drywall, nothing. Not a desk, not a chair, nothing. 3 years. $53 million spent. Right? She said, Rowley, stupid to do something like that. She did it on multiple occasions. They rented a building on Pembroke Street, $9 million in rent spent, never used. They rented a building on Frederick Street, $5 million spent in rent, never used. And those are just some of the many buildings identified in the several Auditor General's report, pointing to millions of dollars having been spent by that administration to rent buildings, and it was never used. But the landlords was laughing all the way to the bank. And all of these buildings were in Port of Spain. Who owns the buildings in Port of Spain? People living in South, people living in Oropouche East, people living in Tabakit and Faizabad? No, it is people living in West Morings. People of a particular hue, persons who are identified as 1%. All of these people would have received tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in rent for buildings that were never used under the PP. But today, they want to tell you Rowley is in the back pocket of the 1%. Their supporters keep coming on social media and telling you that Rowley only care about the 1%. I've fed up talk about this. I've fed up talk about this. But no matter how you try to drill it and pound it in their head, they're just not getting done. I have made the point before. Every building that Patrick Manning would have rented, leased between 2009, 2010, all of those leases would have come to an end between 2012 and 2013. Typical government lease is for 3 years. 3. It means that every building that Kamla Persad-Bissessar and UNC had a problem with the PNM renting before they came into office in May of 2010, all of those leases expired while they were still in office in 2012 and 2013. They renewed all. And I'm speaking here to all of the UNC supporters that are listening. Your great government, your great party renewed all of the leases that they want to tell you about now. Every chance they get to tell you about how much money Faris family get in, and how much money the clan get in, and how many buildings the government renting from the 1%. They could have brought all of those leases to an end in 2012 and 2013, and they chose not to. Instead, they decided to renew the lease. One of those buildings on which the lease was renewed was number 1 Alexandra Street. And it was only when this administration came in 2015, there were a few months left on the lease, and when it expired in 2016, the government decided to use the building to house the Ministry of Public Utilities, and it has been used to house the Ministry of Public Utilities since then. This government put it to use. Keith Rowley did not leave it empty for 5 years or 8 years, contrary to what Philip Edward Alexander would tell you. The man who wants to be the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And as I keep telling them, when you are going to lie, please make sure that the truth is well hidden so that your lie would not be exposed as quickly as you told it, right? The building next door, number 3, Alexandra Street, which now houses the CPO's office. Again, in 2012, when they were looking for building to rent to host the CPO's office, Mr. Munilal, as the Minister of Housing, and under whose purview the President would have fallen at that time, I believe, or is it, well, would have written to Faris' father-in-law requesting to rent number 3 Alexandra Street to house the same CPO office. They had no problems then with renting from Faris. They had no problems then with how much Faris' father-in-law would have charged. They had no problem spending 20-something million to rent it then. No. When Munilal sent off that letter to Mr. Nahus, they didn't care that the money was going in Faris' family pocket. But today they have a problem with the money going into Faris' family's pocket. And the only reason why they didn't proceed with that is because somebody was going there and tell them how that will look. How that will look. Now I'm seeing somebody here, you see, this is why I don't like to read the, this is why I do not like to read the comments. I'm seeing somebody here. Bobby Ramnath is saying Faris alone collecting over $100 million a year. Bobby, let me tell you something, right? Don't come here to talk that nonsense. How is Faris collecting over $100 million a year? On which buildings, Bobby? Which one? Number 3 Alexandra Street is rented for $21 million for 3 years, Bobby. So it's $7 million a year for one building, Bobby. All right? And number 1 is around the same price. How many buildings they're renting from Faris, Bobby? You see, when they come here with these talking points that you get from Douglaya Politics, the talking points that you get from the Underground Report, the talking points that you get from the Monday Night Forum, because all you don't do research and you will come here and looking dumb. Paris not collecting no $100 million a year. But since you're here, Bobby, let me educate you. How much money is John Aboud paying for the water park in Chaguaramas that your political leader, Bobby, gave to him 35 acres to build his water park at $3,800 a month when the government, the state valuator said he should have been paying $500,000 a month, Bobby? You okay with that, Bobby? It wasn't Keith Rowley that gave Mr. Aboud 35 acres of prime real estate in Chaguaramas, Bobby. Kamala did that. It was not Keith Rowley that gave Mr. Aboud 4 acres of prime real estate in Chaguaramas to build a car park. 4 acres for 30 years for $1 a year, Bobby, which means that Mr. Aboud would be paying $30 for the 30 years, Bobby. $30 for 30 years. And then he was supposed to build his car park and lease it to the CDA for $900,000 a month, Bobby. Almost $1 million a month, Bobby. So at the end of the year, the CDA would have paid him almost $12 million, Bobby, and he would have handed them $1. $1, Bobby. They had him 12, he gave them $1, Bobby. Who did that? Kamala Persad-Bissessar did that, Bobby. Let me hear you speak on that, please. Speak on that. Who gave away Sharkville Beach, Bobby? Who gave one member of the 1%, one of the mega farms that Mr. Manning established to reduce the price of food, right, in Trinidad, Bobby? The same mega farm that Mr. Manning set up so that we could produce food and export and diversify the economy. Who shut down the mega farm because they said the private sector, the government shouldn't be competing with the public sector shouldn't be competing with the private sector. And the government shouldn't be competing with the small farmers. So they shut down all the mega farms and give one member of the 1% 100 acres, Bobby, to plant onions, to export. And then the plan changed, Bobby. And next thing you know, you end up with a restaurant on the land, Bobby. Who did that? It wasn't Keith Rowley did that. In fact, when Keith Rowley came into office, he challenged all of those leases, Bobby. He took them to court. He took back 50 acres of the 100 acres, Bobby, from that one man that got that your leader gave to him. Keith Rowley took back 50. So 26 of those acres, Bobby, will be going to young people between the ages of 18 to 35 under the Homestead program so that they could plant. Young people, Bobby, who don't have land and who don't have money. Under the Homestead program, they will receive acreage to be able, and the many other agricultural programs under the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. They will be getting acreages to plant and make money to run their own business. So while your leader talking about creating 50,000 jobs, Bobby, Keith Rowley and the PNM creating employers, entrepreneurs. So they could plant, and you see the very same concept that the man with the 100 acres got, and what he did. His plan was to plant a variety of crops and have people come to his farm and go on the land and pick what you want straight off of the vine, straight off of the trees. The PNM is setting up agro-processing facilities so that these young people between the ages of 18 and 35, instead of getting into a life of crime and being labeled urban youth, Bobby, they could now go and plant, grow crops, sell on the local market, and also the government will assist them in finding foreign markets to sell their produce at in foreign exchange, Bobby. Could you tell me if Kamala Persad-Bissessar has articulated any similar policy or strategy to assist the young people, Bobby? Or can they look forward to Color Me Orange Part 2? Can they look forward to Life Sport Squared? Can they look forward to Hoop of Life? Who are we going to pay this time? LeBron James, $20 million to come to Trinidad to lift up Kamala and put her basketball in a hoop, sign some autographs, take some pictures and go back home. And then the young people who could have benefit from that money, all they get is a little, Bobby, your leader did that. And it is in your party's manifesto, Bobby, that says that should you put them back in 2025, they're coming back to do the same thing again. What they started in Chaguaramas, they're going to complete it. Were you one of those persons, Bobby, who marched from Chaguaramas to the waterfront to protest the giving away of lands? Prime real estate in Chaguaramas to the 1%, Bobby? Since all you like to talk about Rowley and Rowley in the pocket of the 1%. Tell us, how is that so now? When last you drive through Port of Spain, Bobby, have you seen all of those 1% owned buildings that have for sale and for rent signs on them, Bobby, and have been empty, vacant for the last 5 to 8 years, Bobby? Thanks to who? Keith Rowley. Operationalizing the government campus, which was left abandoned for 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days, Bobby. Yes, Keith Rowley. So the building that was previously occupied by immigration on Frederick Street has been boarded up for years because immigration now has their own building and government campus, Bobby, for which they're not paying rent. The building that previously housed customs at the corner of Abercrombie Street and Independence Square, for years, millions was being paid to Issa Nicholas. That building too has been empty, Bobby, for the last 6 or so years, as customs now have their own building on Ajax Street for which they pay no rent, Bobby, because the government owns it. The Board of Inland Revenue that was renting premises on Queen Street and here, there, and everywhere, they have their own 23-floor tower and government campus, Bobby, for which they pay no rent. I know. I'm not here, Bobby. You disappear? So all those buildings that were being rented by the government all over the place, that Keith Rowley moved into government campus, right? Those buildings are now empty. No rent being paid to the 1%. But when the mistress of the mask, your leader, say that when she comes back, if she comes back in 2025, if the good people should put God out of their thought, first thing she's going to do is to create 3 new ministries, Bobby. The Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Defense, and the Ministry of Home Affairs, Bobby, in addition to the Ministry of National Security. Where will these 3 ministries be housed, Bobby? Are we going to see her now re-engage the owners of some of these buildings that Keith Rowley has had empty for the last how many years to house these 3 ministries? And this is just 3, eh? We don't know what other ministries they're going to create. Maybe they're going to bring back the Ministry of National Diversity and Social Integration. Every one of these ministries needs a building to operate from, Bobby. So is it that the 1% licking their chops and saying, well, if Kamala come back, we will get the building rent again? Yes, Bobby? Or is it they're going to set up a tent in Woodford Square? Are they going to put up a cardboard box on Frederick Street? Is that what they're going to do, Bobby? I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I think renting the building is what probably makes sense. But anyway, this is again what going on at Farris Building. I just told you, 2 buildings. One Alexander Street currently houses the Ministry of Public Utilities. It has been the headquarters of the Ministry of Public Utilities since 2016. Since 2016, the Ministry of Public Utilities has been occupying the building that the People's Partnership left abandoned for 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days. Having spent $120 million on outfitting, $43 million in rent, and $5 million for security for 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days. When this Rowley administration came in, they utilized the building, and the Ministry of Public Utilities and several other associated departments like the Electorate, the Inspection Department, and all of that, Electrical Inspectorate, and all of those are housed there. The building next door is the office house that houses the CPO's office, the Chief Personnel Officer, the man who decides how much money or what is the amount, the percentage that they would offer public servants. So where the 4% would have originated there. All right? The building that they previously occupied for years on St. Vincent Street would have been damaged when we had that big earthquake in August of 2018. There was structural damage to the building. But since 2012, they saw the need, or before that, to move the CPO's office out of St. Vincent Street, which, as I mentioned before, is why Munilal wrote to Farris' father-in-law in 2012 expressing an interest, a desire to rent the building next door to number 1, Alexandra Street, number 3. The UNC did that. Munilal, the cabinet approved that. The cabinet tell Munilal, yes, go ahead and write to Faris' father-in-law and ask him if we could rent number 3. Number 1 empty. We don't know what the hell to do with it, but we want number 3 too. And then they changed their mind and went Barataria, spent 53 million, and we can't find the building yet. All right, Bobby, and whoever else want to know. Right? So, in the perspective of Farley, right? So, over $1.2 million spent for Pembroke Place. They're now going to bring an end to that lease arrangement because they decide probably they're not going to pursue the embassy in Trinidad anymore. And as a result of that, that money gone down the drain. But they wanted to kill Tricky Tracy. How much money was it with the zip line? I wonder if the Begonians are waiting for, where's the man, Max James, that's his name? The one who told us about the PNM propaganda machine and that he see, and all he had to do is to put in a person name and you get all the information come up about them and all kind of a canal. I wonder if it is Winford James is going to defend that. I don't know, Vanna's not in that no more. But all of the other upholders, I wonder if Ochoy Charles is going to come and give us some explanation to say, well, don't beat up on him too much, you know. Yeah, we have money for this money that we asked for, but you've got to find $1.2 million to pay for this building. You never use it. Nobody and nothing prevented you from using it, but the idea was ill-conceived. It was a dotish, dumb idea from the start, because questions were being asked: who is going to staff this building? Are you going to send people from Tobago to staff these buildings or to staff that building? In which case, aside from salary, you have to find money to pay for accommodation for them and transport. So are you going to hire Trinidadians to staff this building to tell people about Tobago? It was not well thought of. But you see all these grandiose ideas. Okay. All of these grandiose ideas. $1.2 million going down the drain, right? Now, if they said they was paying workers $1,000 ex gratia payment, it means that over 1,100 THA workers could have gotten the ex gratia payment from that money that went in one man pocket. One man pocket, when they could have paid over 1,000 workers the ex gratia payment, but nothing for you. They can't find the money for that. And up to now, 2 years later, they still can't get all the ex gratia payment. But good boy Farley. Yeah, good boy Farley. Yeah. And nice. We ain't beaten up on it. No, Rowley is only Rowley. Rowley have an issue with Farley. The opposition have an issue with Farley is because Farley better looking. Okay then, Mrs. Pasad Bissessa, right? Maybe that's why he was in love with Jack. No, I apologize. Madam Speaker, I retract. I didn't see that. I don't know where that came from. Anyway, Lord have mercy. So I saw yesterday, Jack and Gary were working in Marabella. Interestingly enough, when you go on Gary's Facebook page, you have some footage from the work, but nothing with Jack. So I don't know if it is that if he's ashamed of Jack and he don't want to post up any pictures or videos with him working with Jack, but right? Or he don't want Jack to take the shine from him, which he has already done to some extent. But this is the same Gary Griffith who said he is living in the Prime Minister's head rent-free. But when you visit his Facebook page yesterday, it told a different story. It is clear. As I've said before, it is the Prime Minister who's living in his head rent-free, because he was given updates ever so often to tell you, well, 11:10, Gary Griffith walk in. 12:15, Gary Griffith walk in, but where Keith Rowley? Keith Rowley playing golf. Keith Rowley on the golf course, right? You couldn't find nothing else to post up but to talk about, to give people a ball-by-ball update that we are walking here, here, and here. And right now, my information is Keith Rowley on the golf course, right? Last night, they show he and Jack on the news. And he and Jack's again from the same playbook, telling you about, while they walk in, Rowley playing golf. They say, well, Rowley don't care about the people because he playing golf. And I want to ask Gary, and I want to ask Jack, where was Kamla? Since we all about political leaders walking, where was Kamla? Where she was walking? From the bathroom to the bed and back? Because we know, based on recent footage that we have seen, she could only walk about 100 feet before rest and reflection is required. And even that she can't do without a human crutch. Okay? So we know walking is not on her agenda. So we don't come and tell her she was walking nowhere yesterday. And any footage only provide that probably from 2010. Okay? Because we know Mrs. Prasad-Bisesa can't walk nowhere, not even when she go into the meeting. Right? To sit down is a stress. So they had so now the new thing is they had to start to play the music. When she come to a meeting, you had to wait until she reached halfway in the hall, then to announce her arrival. Okay? Because if it is you announced it before, she had to make about 60 stops between the time she come through the door and the time she reached the seat to sit down, to shake hand and kiss and touch up people's face, and she ain't able with that. By the time she sit down, she tired. She even have enough strength to clap, far less to smile. So that is her stress, right? So where was she? All you know where Rowley was, where all your leader was Gary. Jack, where was your leader yesterday when Ole was walking? Tell us that now. We would love to know. But all I want to come and talk about Rowley was playing golf. Okay. And what did you all achieve by that walk yesterday? I see the OWTU have a faction now working with UNC candidates in South. What an embarrassment. The OWTU, there's a political party called the MSJ, the Movement for Social Justice, that was born out of the trade union movement, that the leadership of the MSJ came from the OWTU. But instead of them working with their candidates in South, they working with the UNC and the NTA. And the leader of some section or some nonsense coming to talk about their decision to work with the UNC and the NTA is because for the last 8 years, this government has treated the citizens of this country with scorn and scant courtesy and total disregard. And they want to send a message that enough is enough because this government has not cared for the people for the last 8 years. Really? Clearly, they're still tooting over the fact that they didn't get the refinery. But I want to tell that gentleman, I can't remember his name, but I want to tell him something. And all you from the OWTU, right, who sold your souls for not even 30 pieces of silver, because the UNC can't afford 30 pieces of silver. That is why after 34 years, they're still renting premises. They don't have a permanent headquarters. Yeah? So maybe the penny that Anil talked about, and I'll come into that just now, the penny that he wanted to offer Penny Beckles for her thoughts, the same penny that you offer all you and all you take, right, to sell your souls. That same penny that you offer all you, right? Let me remind you all that in 2019, 2020, when COVID hit, and it was this government, having not budgeted or anticipated what COVID would have brought, and therefore there was no allocation in the 2019-2020 budget to provide salary relief grants and income support grants. This government, under Keith Rowley, took the decision to go into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to take out money to provide you, the average citizen, those of you who would have suffered a loss in income or a reduction in your income as a result of your place of work having shut down because of the government's decision to close down certain aspects of the economy, and therefore you were out of work, or because of reduced demand and patronage for whatever place that you were working, your employer would have cut your salary. It was this government under Keith Rowley that took the decision to go into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to draw out money to pay over 97,000 citizens of this country income support grants and salary relief grants. Let me remind the OWTU that says that this government for the last 8 years has been treating the citizens with scorn and without care, that when this government decided to do that, it was Kamla Prasad-Bisesa and the UNC that challenged the government on that decision. It was Kamla Prasad-Bisesa and the UNC who went all over the place telling people that the government raided the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. It was Kamla Prasad-Bisesa and the UNC that you're all supporting today are the same ones who were opposed to the government taking money from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to provide income support grants and salary relief grants to over 97,000 citizens in this country. Plenty of them who day after day used to be coming on social media to claim they apply so long and they ain't get the money and it's a gimmick thing and this government on scheme and they misleading people and it's a mama guy thing. But as soon as they get the money, you ever see any of them come on social media to do a video to say, hey, look, the money reached in my account. Look, the slip here to show it reach. Any of them come and say, hey, look, my bank statement. Look, I get the money. 97,000 plus of them got it. How many of them came on social media to say, yes, I apologize. I say the government, I say this was a mama guy thing, but I get the money. When they didn't get it yet, because they rush in, the government say, we have to check to make sure all your legit. Plenty of them got more than the 3 months money because they double dip. They applied to NIS and they applied to the ministry. And instead of getting $4,500, they got $9,000. Plenty of them get away with that. Real crookery. And that's why I always have to say, when Desmond Carty say, all are we thief, that is what he meant. That is what he meant. But we're quick to call the politicians thieves and crooks. But the average citizen engaging in the crookery too. How many of them, when it is this government decided they would go into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund to take out money to provide support for persons paying rent, the rental support grant, how many people got that? It was the same Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the UNC who were opposed to the government going into the HSF to take out money to do that. When the government said we would go in the HSF to take out money to be able to pay income tax returns for 2 years. So anybody with income tax returns for 2 years or more, totaling $20,000 or less, we're giving you that money to assist. When this administration said, look, we will pay VAT refunds up to a certain amount of businesses so they wouldn't have to send workers home or cut workers' pay. Look, we're giving all your money so that you could pay your overheads and not send workers home. It was this government that took the decision that, notwithstanding the fact that they instructed public servants to stay home, when the Prime Minister was begging people, oh, all you stay home now, man. Normally, when it had work, all you're calling in sick, all kind of excuse, now we begging all you stay home. You're getting your full pay. Not one public servant went home with short pay for the entire time. This administration decided to do that. So when I hear the OWTU man talking this nonsense about government treating the citizens of this country with scorn over the last 8 years, when it was that this government, again during COVID, injected $100 million into the credit union movement to provide members with loans of up to $5,000 a month for 3 months, interest-free loans. Your government did that. The same government that he said treating the citizens with scorn. It was the same Keith Rowley administration that put $300 million into First Citizens Bank to assist small and micro enterprise businesses with loans of up to $300,000 a piece to be able to pay the overhead costs and so on, to continue to pay the rent so the landlord wouldn't throw them out because the business shut because of COVID. This government did that, interest-free loans. And on top of that, the government provided 100% guarantee. So if any of these businesses decide after me paying back that loan, the government has to foot the bill. It was this government that gave $30 million to the ecclesiastical entities, the churches and the mosques and the mandirs, so that they could provide support for the members through the provision of hampers and meals and all of these things. This government did that, right? It was this government that took the decision to buy produce from farmers, to be able to create food boxes to give out to the needy. And these farmers benefited because the excess crops that they normally have, when they carry it to the market and it then sell and it have to dump, the government was buying all of it. Millions of dollars went into the pockets of these farmers. And when it is after COVID had subsided and the government said we would continue with that program, it was the UNC and Anil Roberts and them who come to say that the government continuing this program in an attempt to buy votes. As if all of a sudden some of the people who were struggling before, that struggle ended when COVID ended. Well, it didn't end, but when it subsided, when the government was saying we will continue to do that, it was the UNC under Kamla Persad-Bissessar and the rest of them had a problem with that. But the government using your money. That is not the government money. The Heritage and Stabilization Fund is not the government money. That is your money, which the government chose to give to you directly. And they had a problem with it. They didn't want them to do that. And they raided the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And when we were in office between 2010 and 2015, we never went in and we never touched the fund and we never made any withdrawals. Because you couldn't. The law as it was prevented you from doing that. That is the last bastion of savings that all you couldn't touch. You reap everything else. When it is you're running out of money, They started to sell off assets, right? Shares in First Citizens Bank, shares in Phoenix Park Gas, everything they were selling out. But yet today, the supporters want to come and tell you that this government's selling out the country. This government's selling out the state assets. But like all your memory short, because plenty of you all need a reminder as to why it is you voted these people out in 2015. But today, we want to give them a second chance. 10 years in the wilderness of opposition is sufficient. They have paid their dues. Enough penance. They have suffered enough penance. We're ready to bring them back so that they could give us a double and triple dose of what we got between 2010 to 2015. So when I see the OWTU, arm in arm with the NTA and the UNCC, all working and supporting the candidates in South so that you could hand them the San Fernando Corporation. All the development that is taking place in San Fernando now with the waterfront and so on. Who did that? Who did that? It wasn't Kamala Persad-Bissessar. It wasn't the UNC that did that. How many people from South getting employment on those projects that are taking place now in South? Which we're going to talk about how many jobs and how many jobs were lost. And my government will create 50,000 jobs. Where are you creating these jobs? Where are you creating them? CPEP? URP? Make work programs? 3-month contracts? Like Color Me Orange? That's what you're offering the people? That's the betterment that you're coming with in 2025? And you have some, when I read some of the comments of some of these people, I am convinced more now than ever that the broad base of that party is so clueless. It is amazing. Amazing. The things, they come in on social media and all they do, they listen to the Monday Night Forum. They listen to the Underground Report, Douglaya Politics, Doubles and Coffee. And whatever it is that is said there, they take that as gospel and come in to run with it, to post up that in a big way on social media, and then only to be embarrassed. Because your party is leading you down this slippery slope, feeding your lies and propaganda, and only taking that as gospel and running with it. Going on radio station and calling in talk shows and talking that crap. And then they had to embarrass all here. Even though some of these talk show hosts now, even at the urban stations, some of them, you're not a talk show host. You're a DJ, just play music and hush your mouth. Or they shouldn't say a word, nothing to do with politics and current affairs, because you all are just, they don't know nothing. Asking a question about whether or not you agree with the Prime Minister with respect to the Ethics Council being biased and having ethics. Plenty of them say, no, they don't agree with the Prime Minister. Right? That the Ethics Council is correct. So they found 3 violations on the part of Dr. Rowley and the PNM so far. But UNC, 0 violations. None. And so Dr. Rowley talked about stand your ground and the gun laws that the UNC is promising that if it is you put them back in office, they will relax the gun laws to make it easier for the average law-abiding citizen to get a gun. And I see now some woman from South claims that, a bunch of men tried to break into her home and she would have had a licensed firearm. She opened fire and she's a crack shot. So she hit one of the men in the head and they died. And there were 260 something comments under that post just now on CNC3. And everybody praising her and saying, well, that is support for stand your ground and gun and give everybody gun. Right? So we know the story that came there, but we don't know the rest of it. So the police still investigating. Okay? Understand your ground, you could open fire and say the people came to rob you. Now, I don't know the circumstances. It may very well have been so. But at the end of the day, they're going to talk about that at the next meeting tomorrow night, and they had a Monday Night Forum. They're going to use that as an example to support that. I won't go down that road. I was going to say something, but I will leave that. Let me get this thing here, right? I'm going to deal with Mr. Raghunath is his name? Yes, no. Let me get it. Before I deal with that editorial. had this thing, so many, the amount of things, when you're doing research, the amount of things that comes up from 2010 to 2015 that I need to talk about is amazing. Okay. But we have time for that. Not today, unfortunately, but we will deal with all of these issues. I'm looking for this article with Mr. Raghunath. Just now, give me 1 second, let me find it. For the amount of things to talk about. Well, anyway, I ain't seen it yet because I'm in the interest of time. So Mr. Raghunath, I think is his name, Bishnu Raghunath of the Ethics Council, came out and said he's not surprised that the Prime Minister bashed them. And in fact, they were anticipating that, right? And he's saying that if it is the Ethics Council had found that the NTA or the UNC had violated the Code of Ethics, that Dr. Rowley would have been pleased. Yeah? But because it's the PNM that breached it, that is why Dr. Rowley vexed. We might not hear something, right? But this same Ethics Council, I don't know how it is they decide who in violation or who not. If it is, they have to send them, because like they're not vigilant. So we have to believe they're not listening to you are the Ethics Council. And you are required, you are the watchdog to ensure that politicians stay in line and abide by the dictates of the Code of Ethics, right? So we are supposed to believe that all you're not watching the meetings, that you just sit down waiting for somebody from another party to send you a complaint. Then you're now going to look for the footage, to look to see what the complaint was, and then to make a determination. So when all these political parties having the meetings on TV6, radio and TV, Jagrati, TTT, and wherever else, we have to believe that Mr. Raghunath and the rest of the council, they don't watch these meetings at all. No. In order to remain politically independent and unbiased, they don't look at anybody meetings. So we have to believe that Mr. Raghunath and the rest of his council didn't hear when Barry Padarath on numerous occasions referred to Dr. Rowley as a lazy son of a bitch. He didn't hear that. That wasn't in violation of the ethics, the Code of Ethics. But yet still the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago saw it fit to write a letter on more than one occasion to Radio and TV Jagrati, letting them know that the utterances of Mr. Padarath was in breach of the broadcast code, and they were warned. All I notice, they stopped broadcasting on Jagrati TV, right? Anytime, and when last all I hear Barry talk? The last time Barry talked, they had to move the meeting and broadcast it on some obscure station or something like that. But once you are subject to the Telecommunications Authority, you have to abide by their code. So the Telecommunications Authority say when Barry Padarath called Dr. Rowley that was a breach. But apparently that is not a breach of the Code of Ethics. As see now, the Doglaya decided to go after Penny Beckles, right? A whole 10-minute talking about if he gave Penny a penny for her thoughts, that she would owe him change and all of this kind of thing. And the reason why Dr. Rowley would have promoted Nian Gatsby-Dolly to the post of deputy political leader instead of Penny, because Nian could give Dr. Rowley what Penny can't. Apparently, Raghunath didn't hear that, and the rest of his council didn't hear that. When Jack Warner was referring to the Minister of Public Utilities as her, apparently they didn't hear that either. None of that, or if they did hear it, none of that constituted a breach of the Code of Ethics. No. But the ears in tuned when the PNM meeting going on. As I always say, when the UNC meeting going on, all of a sudden there's get cataract and glaucoma in the ears. But when PNM meet, 2020 vision, 2020 hearing, then both the hearing good and could come and they make it a point to run to the media and send communication to the media. So you get a complaint from a private entity, right? You're supposed to respond to them. But you make it a point in responding to whoever it is send you the complaint, you need to send a copy and CC the media, every media house, so they could publish it to show, well, look what the PNM doing. And when the Prime Minister call you all out as being biased, you have a problem with it. Well, for real? Raghunath? You serious? You can't be serious. You cannot be serious. The Prime Minister has every right to call you all biased, because that is exactly what you all are. When Kamla Persad-Bissessar called Dr. Rowley a donkey fool, you all didn't find that was a violation? No, that wasn't a violation. When it is that this next one, Amit Suknanan or whatever it is, one of the councillors from the Sawa Lavantel Regional Corporation, you know, in trying to impress Kamla Persad-Bissessar, referred to Dr. Rowley as a jackass. That didn't constitute a breach of your code of ethics. When Kamla Persad-Bissessar comes on the platform and lies week after week about the government implementing an inheritance tax, for which she has no evidence, no proof, not one shred of documentary evidence to support that. And when she's called upon to name your source, I'm not revealing my source. You know what the media, they say you never reveal your sources, right? The Prime Minister has said it is a lie. The Minister of Finance has said it is a lie. Your code of ethics speaks to politicians spreading information that is untrue, but that didn't constitute a breach. When it is she stand up on the platform and say, and could you probably increase the price of flour by 33%, man? And then 1 week later, the price of flour dropped by 10 to 12% or 12 to 13%, Mr. Raghunath. A blatant lie, which she has never repeated. You know why she didn't repeat it? Because she knows herself to be a damn blasted liar, taking chain up, always advised, but never informed. Or they didn't find that didn't constitute a breach. And yeah, but Dr. Rowley only complaining because. And it is interesting that Mr. Raghunathan being interviewed by the media would point out if they had said that a breach had been committed by the UNC or the NTA, as if those are the only other two parties that contest in the local government election. Why didn't mention the PDP or the PEP or the MSG or any of the others? Why did you zero in on the NTA and the UNC, Mr. Raghunath? Do we need to inspect the color of your bloomers, Mr. Raghunath? But we don't need to. Your utterances tell us the color. I don't need to say it, right? But who the cap fits? Let them win. Fooling. We done make all out already, long time. All of them who want to come up. It's performing so horribly, and the economy is so bad, and everything's so bad in the country, and the citizens suffering. Why is all they need to come together and gang up? It should be very easy, rock back and just let things play out. All of these citizens in the country would see the same thing all they're seeing. But all they're not fooling nobody. We know all they have an agenda. Is to see the UNC come back into power, and this election is the lifeline that Kamla Persad-Bissessar needs, so desperately needs, because she knows if she loses this election, if they lose any corporations, it's pressure in the camp. What they've known since 2015, for the last 8 years, that they refuse to acknowledge. Well, plenty of them acknowledge it, but they had nothing they could do, especially the membership knows. But you know what, as we continue to say, let's keep her right there. Keep Mrs. Persad-Bissessar right there. Because you know what? She will get younger. In 2025, she's going to be younger and stronger and more vibrant than she is today. Because she's aging backwards. While everybody else aging forward, she's going to age backwards. So now where she could only walk 100 feet and then she need to take a rest, while Kitchener say, old lady walk 1.5 miles and she tilele. Well, after she walk 100 feet, she ready to tilele. Right? That's going to change in the next 2 years. And she ain't gonna need a human crutch again in 2025 that she needs today. And pretending, dragging poor Gregory. Yeah, the man hand stiff so when he sit down, like he get a stroke. When she finished with him, so she holding on to his hand so tight to walk. And only shuffling. And then when she did a rest, you go stop and touch somebody in their face and give them a kiss. But really and truly, she taking a breather. And only watching the chair side, oh God, how much food have I? As we only see, oh good, that chair looking so far, but yeah. Oh well, give me a break. Give me a break now. Yeah, almost there. Almost there. She like Sisyphus pushing a rock up the hill. Oh God, almost there. Yeah, boy. Huh. And then to sit down is pressure. It's pressure. Let me see here. I'll need to find, I had the article earlier on. I will see if I find it. Because I think I wanted to let you all know as Leela Ramdeen of the Catholic Commission. I will find this thing. I saw the Express and all put out an editorial yesterday, and I have it saved. Let me see if I pull it up here. Right. Yeah, because apparently the OWTU, I don't know if it is they feel that if Kamla come back, she won't handle the refinery. Really? You all seem to forget, and I made the point before, that when you drop your proposal, after you rejected in 2018 the government's offer to purchase the refinery. And then you went to bed and you had an epiphany and get up, Roger, and decide, yes, we want we go take the refinery. And you draw up your proposal and you go in from here, there, and everywhere, right? From pillar to post, sharing your proposal. When you went to the UNC and Kamla and her team sat down with you all, when you came out of the room after the meeting, you had a brief press conference, say, UNC tell all you, bid for the whole Petrotrain, not just the refinery, right? Bid for the whole thing. They had nothing but the best of confidence in your ability to run the refinery. And then when you put in your bid and the government come and they say, okay, patriotic win, the same Kamla Persad-Bissessar was the first one out of the blocks to ask you 10 questions. Remember the 10 questions? She wanted to know how patriotic could afford the refinery. But when Oliver sit down with her, and give oh yes, Kamla. Gosh, Kamla, you're easy, you know, girl. When Oliver was doing that, when you went to your original proposal and she tell you bid for the whole of Petrotrain, she didn't ask Oliver how are you going to pay for it. She wasn't concerned then how are you going to pay for it. Eh? Because they didn't think the government would take Oliver seriously. And when Oliver get through, all of a sudden, tongue change, 180-degree turn. But like Roger and them, Oliver forget that. You're vexed with Rowley because you couldn't come up with a proper bid, a proper funding arrangement to get the refinery. Everybody was behind Oliver to get this refinery. Not just because we wanted the PNM to look good enough, because we saw it as an opportunity. It was an opportunity finally for at least a certain section of the African community to own enterprise in this country, right? To own enterprise. And we saw all of the possibilities that could have come out of that. Of OWTU owning the refinery. And while you mess up that, mess it up, the government give all you a sweetheart deal, you know. They tell you, you don't need to go and get all the money like what you proposing now. We ain't going to put that strain on you, right? We are giving you an opportunity. All you need to do is to just make this optional down payment. We will give you a 3-year moratorium. You don't have to pay nothing. Get the refinery back up and running. Run your business. Get some money. Sort out all the teething problems. And then start back over 10 years, not from having to borrow money and earn interest. Pay us back from the earnings of the refinery. Make it an overhead expense. So instead of you having to pay some expensive financier, millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in interest, just pay us from the earnings of the refinery. We're making it easy for Ole to do it. You don't need to borrow as much money as Ole, and even that Ole couldn't get right. Even that, the government gave you a second chance after they rejected the first offer, give you a second chance to wheel and come again, and you wheel and come again with even more nonsense. And for that, you're vexed with Rowley. Because Rowley ain't give Ole the refinery. So Ole wanted Rowley to hand Ole the refinery. So the government's supposed to take the state assets and hand it to Ole and say, look, the refinery, go now and pledge the refinery as collateral so you could get your loan to come and pay us. That making sense? Who does that? That's like somebody want to buy I sell in my house. Somebody come and tell me, here, what now? I want to buy your house now, but you need to sign over your house to me, put my name on the deed so I could go and pledge the house as collateral to get the loan to come and pay you. Not making sense, right? I need to get the down payment, but I don't have the down payment. So I need to put up your house as collateral to be able to take a loan to get the down payment, to go to the bank to get the mortgage, to pay, to buy your house. That making sense to them. That made sense to them, right? 2 occasions, while they mess it up. So now, this Kamla, whose FDO was dragging through the streets, yeah? Back then, the same Kamla who was no damn good, the same Kamla recognized was no damn good. Today, while they want to come and join forces with her and lock arms, unfortunately, this time, she's not able to do that because Kamla of 2010 is not Kamla of 2023, right? So when Gary and Jack want to come and tell you about who Rowley was playing golf while they were walking and they can't tell you where Kamla was, it tells you something. If it is that her supporters are lucky, they might see 1 or 2 occasions before the election where they're going to prop her up in the back of her pickup, like a mask, like the UNC mascot, so she could wave. Hey, look, she. I'll come out and wave. Hey, aye. Right. Yeah, prop she up. So they might take a piece of rope and tie it around her waist and tie it up so she could stand up. Well, ain't fooling nobody. Ain't fooling nobody. But I want to play something for you. You see certain people with short memories, right? Especially Mr. Mr. Warner. Let me get this here. Yes. I wonder if Mr. Warner remembers this. Get this here.
There is no excess of any minister of which Mrs. Prasad Bisesa is unaware. Even while I was there, I went to her and told her about the Attorney General. I swear to God. And she said she'll deal with it. Then I recall a meeting I had with her and David Abdullah, and we both told her about corruption in the government. And then she said there's nothing to do about it. So I'm saying to you that it's not to say that she's unaware. I mean, how could she be unaware of Ganga Singh? How could she be unaware of Gopi Singh? How could she be unaware of Monilal? The whole country knows. And these are the people who she wanted first to go up for election. It means that she has subscribed to their wrongdoing.
She has subscribed to their wrongdoing. David Abdullah and myself went to Mrs. Prasad Bisesa and told her about the wrongdoing of members of her government. And she said nothing she could do about it. Nothing she could do about it. I went and I told her about the Attorney General. What happened after with the Attorney General? Who had to end up before the courts, right? And only now get off on a little technicality because of the law. As they say, the law is an ASS, right? Because the law says that when a man gives evidence, that he has to present, unless he can satisfy one of these criteria here, or one of these conditions as to why he cannot appear in court to give evidence in person, that his transcript of the evidence would not be accepted. And because nothing wrong with Mr. Nelson, right? He doesn't satisfy any one of the conditions that the law stipulates would excuse him from coming to court to give the testimony. The DPP has no choice but for now to stand down on the charges that will lead against these men, right? The former Attorney General that Mrs. Prasad Bisesa hired, the man in whom she was well pleased, the man in whom she had all confidence, that while it is saying, Annan is the best AG the country ever see, the treasury was being ripped off. And here it is, Jack Warner is telling you, this is before they were charged. Jack Warner is telling you he went to told her the AG, told her about the wrongdoing, the excesses of ministers in her government. She did. She tell, I can't do nothing about that, no, Jack. My hands tied. What gonna do, Jack? Fire them and embarrass my party? Fire them and embarrass the government? Fire them and give the PNM ammunition to say that the UNC corrupt? Yeah, Jack? We're still reeling under the stain of the airport from 95 to 2001, Jack. The amount of thievery that took place there when Jolene John went to Basdio, when she went to Baz and tell Baz, she went to one meeting of the interministerial committee that comprised several government ministers who belonged to the cabinet of which Kamla Prasad Bisesa was a part. Jolene went to one meeting and she said that the greed was palpable. It was sickening. You could feel the greed. It was pressing against her chest. One meeting she went to. And that was enough for her to run to the Prime Minister and say, Baz, let me tell you something. You see that airport is real crockery taking place. Thiefing galore. And what it is, Baz say? I know, Jolene. It is a feeding frenzy and a milch cow. But what I go do, Jolene? Just like Kamla, I can't do nothing about it, Jolene. What I go do? You know what I will do? The man who digging into it, the man who's trying to get to the bottom of the corruption, the man who's trying to save the treasury of Trinidad and Tobago from all of this thievery, Ramesh Maharaj, I will fire him backside. That is what I will do. And I will put Kamla to replace him because I know she ain't going and give me the headache that he given me. So you see all them things Ramesh want to investigate in Cogen and the Salcott and Severin Trent and the Rice deal and all them things. You see all of that? I don't need that headache. Because that could bring down my government. And I ain't playing that. I love being Prime Minister. So if Ramesh want to play up in a monthly salary, say he want to investigate and he building files on his cabinet colleagues to make sure they get locked up for wrongdoing, I will not have it. I need to find me somebody to replace him as Attorney General who is compliant. Somebody who is not going to do that. Somebody who is willing to turn a blind eye to any and all wrongdoing in my administration. Who can I find who is willing to do that? Oh, Kamla. Yes, Baz. I have a work for you, girl. I'm going and fire Ramesh. Ramesh giving me sleepless nights. You're only talking about corruption. I'm fed up. Even in my dream and all, the man coming in my dream to talk about corruption in the government, I fed up, I can't take it. I get rid of it, but here I give you the work. Because I trust you. And I know you, but you sitting in that office, I good. I ain't had to worry about nothing. All them investigations that Ramesh start, I know you can take care of that. You can count on me, Baz. And she becomes Attorney General, and what does she do? Rather than go through the files to see what would have motivated Ramesh Maharaj to go and do investigation into all of these different projects, even if it is to exonerate the government, she ain't interested in that. So you reach in the Attorney General office and Ramesh have all of these files on the desk. In Kojen, Secretary, shred that there for me. The Salcott, Secretary, shred that there for me too. Rice Deal, Secretary, shred this too. The Piarco Airport, interim report. Look at Bobble. But what the hell? Secretary, shred that there for me too. What I have here? Let me see. I see how Ramesh hire Bob Lindquist. But I ain't seeing no tender here. How he hire Carl Hudson Phillips. I ain't seeing no tender here. All right, I could deal with that. I want to fire the two of them, but let me see how I could fire them, boy, without making it look obvious. So I will make a big stink and quarrel and say that Ramesh gave the boys and them a contract with no proper tendering. Because why? You know what? Carl Hudson Phillips was supposed to tender for this brief. And then Carl, of course, after she write to Carl to ask him, Carl had to put her in her damn place and write a letter telling her, well, first of all, as an attorney, you're supposed to know that legal briefs is not called, I forget the term that he used. We'll try and pull it up here. And since when are briefs tendered? So is it that you expected a long line of senior counsel and counsel to binding up the tender documents to follow out, not knowing the scope of works to do the work, madam? Could you please direct me to where I could find other examples of where briefs were tendered, madam? I'm confused. It's hilarious. And Bob Lindquist had to tell her, well, here, what now? You ain't have to look for no creative way to fire me, you know. If you read the terms of my engagement, you will see that I put it in there that my work will end on the Friday before the election. Because I don't know what the outcome of the election will be, and if a new party will come into office, so I need to make sure that I complete my work and submit a report to the person who hired me, who is Ramesh. That is why it's an interim report. You want to know why it's interim? Because I was hired 2 months before the general election, so I had to work in that 2 months. And in that 2 months, the amount of information I was able to gather that pointed to blatant corruption, the amount of evidence that I gathered that would have motivated me to describe that Piarco Airport. This is Bob Lindquist saying this in writing, that this is the most egregious act of corruption, the greatest act of corruption ever perpetrated on the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago by its government. Those were the words of Bob Lindquist, the same man that the NAR hired to go after O'Halloran. So Kamala had every confidence in Mr. Lindquist when they wanted to dig up to prove corruption against the PNM O'Halloran. But when it is Ramesh bring back the same man to look into corruption under the UNC, she had no confidence in him then and wanted to get rid of him. The evidence is there. All of the information. And Jolene John went to testify before the Commission of Inquiry and started to cry like a big baby. Cry, crocodile. Well, I ain't going to say crocodile tears. I think it was genuine tears, because what I am told by other persons who were working at NIPDEC and so on, that Jolene John was the only person there who really had an interest in seeking the well-being of the citizens. That she was sickened by the amount of corruption that she saw in that project on her first day on the job. So all the other ministers who were part of that interministerial committee before, appointed by Mr. Pandey, they didn't see, the greed wasn't palpable for them. It wasn't sickening for them. But one day, one meeting Jolene John attended, not just Jolene, I think there was somebody else, if it was, who was it, boy? Somebody else, you know, I can't remember, I think if it was Yet Ming or somebody, one of them, I will find it. Two of them say, you see what going on inside it? Me want no part of that now. Because when you see the S hit the fan and the police get involved, I not taking no lockup. I want it on file that I went and I tell Pandey what was taking place, and Pandey tell me he don't know already what taking place there, and he can't do nothing about it. Come back into office 2010 to 2015. His protege, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, Jack just tell earlier, he went to her and told her about the corruption taking place. And she tell him, I can't do nothing about that, Jack. David Abdullah is on record as having said on numerous occasions that he had a conversation with a former PP Minister of Finance. They only had two. And the former minister told him that he estimates is over $7 billion lost in income tax for the year. Over $7 billion a year going down the drain in income tax from people who are not paying their taxes. And when he was asked by David Abdullah, so why are they do something about it? He was told, and this is Abdullah's words, I could say that here, right? Without fear of any courthouse. Abdullah said that the minister, the former minister told him, we can't do nothing because it's our people that doing it. Our financiers are the ones that are not paying the taxes. Our financiers are the ones that robbing the treasury of billions of dollars in taxes. And we know about it, but we can't do nothing because we're dependent on them to finance the party. How else we going to pay rent for the party headquarters? How else we going to fatten our pockets when we need them? We need them back in to fight the PNM. We don't care do nothing about it. But it is they give you $10 and $20 million to fight election. How do you want to tell them, hey, you owe tax? Can't do that. And that is what they want to tell you. Put us back in 2025 so that the children of the UNC that Kamala Persad continues to talk about, she wants to hand over the party to the children of the UNC. Who are the children of the UNC? Ravi Ratiram. Anal Ram, who was fired from not one, but two public utility companies, today sitting in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, fired from TNTech and TSTT. I was reading over that article entitled Why Ram Was Fired. And all of the procurement breaches in that, all of the rules, the procurement rules that this man break as a senior manager in TSTT, it is amazing the hypocrisy that today them could come in Parliament and talk about procurement. He had no regard for procurement when they bring the procurement bill in 2012, when it is he committed this act of which he is accused that resulted in him being fired from TSTT was after they came with the procurement regulation in 2012, this great procurement regulation they want to talk about, and this procurement act that was so great and wonderful that they kept sending to joint select committees to delay the process of implementation. A sham, just to give people the impression, look what we're doing, but tied it up in all kind of red tape and bureaucracy so they wouldn't have to pass it and have to abide by it. And while they were doing that, you had things like that happening where this man hire a company. They have no experience whatsoever in providing bucket trucks. But you went and gave them contract for them to provide bucket trucks that eventually proved to be, did not meet the specifications and put the lives of TSTT workers at risk. That if it is these trucks were procured and then these men now have to go and use these trucks and something happened because it didn't meet the specifications as per the tender rules, who was going to pay for that? So you'd have family after family coming to sue the state, to sue TSTT, right? But they have the audacity to come and talk about procurement. Well, you must read that. Just go on Google why Ram was fired and read that article. In-depth article telling you the incompetence, but not only that, who put him there? Who gave him that work? After he was fired from TNTech, who gave him that work? I don't know, as Peter Minshall say, ask a silly question. His boy, Ratiram, was the deputy chairman of TSTT at the time. Yes, he was on the board of TSTT. How Ram get that work that he wasn't qualified for? But today they want to tell you the PNM is the most corrupt party it ever had in this country. Really? That the woman who would have seen the file from Bob Lindquist, did nothing about it. Her prime minister sat down on that report, did nothing about it. She became AG, did nothing about it. And it's only because by divine intervention, the PNM came back into office that report would have motivated Mr. Manning to invite Mr. Lindquist to come back and complete his investigation, resulting in significant findings that today this country stands to gain $1 billion in restitution through a civil suit. That 20-something years later, we're still waiting for the crooks to make a jail. Still waiting for them to make a jail. But at least we're going to get, hopefully, a little kakada in the kitty that will go into the consolidated fund to pave some of the roads that's all you're complaining about. But we are told that between 2010 to 2015, absolutely nothing was done to advance that case. Paris would have told us that the attorneys, the US attorneys, when he became AG, told him that despite their best efforts between 2010 to 2015 to get instructions from the Attorney General, Anand Ramlogan, on how to proceed with this case, they couldn't do it. He's not interested in that matter. And the case faced a real possibility of being thrown out. Because if the claimant is showing no interest in pursuing the matter, the attorneys for the claimant say, well, we don't know what to do now because they have a new government and we're trying to reach out to the AG to find out how to proceed, and he's not interested. So the only conclusion we could come to is that they want the case to fall apart. Up to now, they have not denied that, except for Kamla to come and say, what? We didn't try to throw no case. We received $18 million. How you received that 18 million? From anything that you did? No, it was from the efforts of the PNM, where these men, the other co-conspirators, did what? Confess to the wrongdoing. Paid restitution, which we got. Make jail. Had a criminal record lodged against the names. Gutierrez and all of these guys. And meanwhile, in the face of all of that, this Kamla Persad-Bissessar came to tell us a few months ago that the Piarco Airport scandal was simply a 25-year-old PNM smear campaign designed to make the UNC look corrupt. That is how she described it. When she would have had the file as Attorney General with all of the evidence and the information from a preliminary investigation, 2 months. 2 months. She would have seen all of that and still come to tell you, in the face of Jolene John sitting before the commission and saying Pandey told her he knew there was corruption. It was a feeding frenzy and a milk cow. She still come and tell earlier it was a PNM smear campaign designed to make the UNC look corrupt. So in other words, she was telling you then that everything Jolene John said in that commission of inquiry was a lie, that Jolene John is a damn blasted liar. This is basically what Kamla Persad-Bissessar was telling you when she said that that was a 25-year-old PNM smear campaign. And Jolene John sit down there and listen to Kamla Persad-Bissessar say that. Basically call you a damn liar to your face and you clap for that with your false hair. With your weave all in your eye and you only. You allow that woman to basically call you a liar. Basically say the testimony that you gave to this commission was a lie. You are no shame, Julie. No shame whatsoever. Right? But you still come in to prop up this lady and praise her. And then when it is now, Mark Bassant did his story, and then the Express come and start to publish excerpts from the report of the commission. And she couldn't deny, in the face of all of that evidence, she could no longer deny it. Come to say, well, I see that the Express publishing all of these things. But don't blame me for that. Pandey, blame Pandey. That was under Pandey. Pandey was the Prime Minister. That is not me. So don't try to come and put that on me. Put what on you, Mrs. Persad-Bissessar, the 25-year-old PNM smear campaign designed to make the UNC look corrupt? So don't blame you for that. Okay, but you were part of that administration. You were the Attorney General. You were the one who took a decision not to continue the investigation. You were the one who took the decision to get rid of Carl Hudson Phillips and Blakewist. You did that. So come now to say, don't blame me. You were complicit in that. And today you telling us to give you another term as Prime Minister. After Jack Warner just told us that he came to you, telling you, giving you evidence of wrongdoing. That is why Ramona Ramdial could say that there was evidence of wrongdoing. Her words, evidence on the part of Mr. Ratiram when he was in PTSC. Evidence of human trafficking. And today, he's sitting in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago representing a constituency. That could never happen under the PNM. And I always give the example. Ansel Antoine was selected as the PNM candidate to represent for a second term W. Mera. Went on a platform after he was selected by the screening committee to represent the constituency and given a speech and say some piece of stupidness, some piece of dotishness. And the next day, that was it. Gone. Next, reconvene the screening committee. We need to find a new representative for W. Mera. Just for saying something stupid on the platform. And he was gone. But you have two people, Anal Ram, fired from not one but two public utilities companies for wrongdoing. And your screening committee found that that was good. You know why? Because he satisfied the UNC criteria to be a representative. You must have the propensity to thief. So when they ask you, you're willing to be corrupt? You're willing to thief? Yes, good. Selected. That's why when they asked Ramesh, when he went for screening, I think in 2010, if it is that he were to find evidence of wrongdoing, what would he do? And I will squeal to the high heavens, I call the police. Forget that. You gone. You don't satisfy the criteria to be a UNC representative. Next. Right? But you have Ravi Ratiram with all them clouds over his head sitting down in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago today. Anil Roberts sitting as a senator in the upper house. The same Anil Roberts who presided over as presided over live sport. Millions of dollars gone just so. One man get $34 million, not a stick or chalk, not a pencil or a crayon. Right? And then you have the guy here. The Minister of Finance then, the $11 million man, telling us that Anil Roberts brought the $34 million man to him. He said that. So, well, let me see it here. Finance Minister, and the article is entitled, It Was Anil. Finance Minister Larry Hawaii says it was Sports Minister Anil Roberts who brought Adolphus Daniel, the educator who was paid $34 million from the live sport program for no work, to his ministry. Speaking, Mr. Hawaii, Mr. Daniel was brought by Mr. Roberts and officers of the Ministry of Sport to meet with the Ministry of Finance to demonstrate how the program would work. After the demonstration, nothing further was heard about this initiative as far as I am aware, said Hawaii in an email response to questions from the Express. The minister was responding to questions on why Daniel was solely selected for the project and whether Daniel's $34 million contract was sent to cabinet for approval, given the quantum of it. This particular contract was approved by the sport company, not by my ministry. State enterprises can and do enter into contracts without cabinet's approval. As far as I can recall, cabinet would not have been aware of this contract at the time that it was approved. The Ministry of Sport proceeded with it through the sport company rather than through the Ministry of Sport itself, how I explained. The audit commissioned by Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar into live sport revealed that Daniel's company, eBeam Interact, was paid $34 million, but no work was ever executed. The audit noted that it is obvious that Sport TT was a party to this contract, mainly because the contract was above the authorized limit of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Sport. And it is evident that the mind and management of this contract has always been and continues to be the Ministry of Sport, contrary to what that lout loves to say. Don't blame the minister don't get involved. Well, according to what this Express article saying here, this was always the mind, let me get it right, and management of the Ministry of Sport. The contract was drafted by the Ministry of Sport Legal, and all the conditions necessary to satisfy the readiness of the centers for the start of numeracy and learning component were always the responsibility of the Ministry of Sport. That's the article there. Anil Roberts was the one who went and found and sold Select. So they had no other bids. Adolphus, yeah, that's something good. Let me carry him by Hawaii to get legitimacy. And after that, Hawaii ain't hear nothing. And then the next thing when the live sport mark bus, this man get $34 million just so and say me and paying it back. Right? But all of a sudden they gone ho about procurement, you know. Procurement. Where was the procurement in that? That bald-headed afterbird today, he want to be talking about everything is procurement, and Rowley want to thief, and they watered down the procurement bill. Where was your love for procurement then, Anil? When you call up Adolphus and say, here, well, meet me now. Meet me by the ministry. And we go in and see Hawaii. We go in down by the Twin Towers. We go in and talk to Larry to get Larry endorsement. Yeah? Larry says so. $11 million man. Says, Anil, bring that man to me. Soul Select. When they leave Twin Towers, what happen after that? Give my bounce in a boy. You inside. And the next thing, the Ministry of Sport dropped the contract. No tender. Soul Select. So it had nobody else could do that work. But clearly, eBeam couldn't do the work either. And $34 million gone just so, but the supporters, they want that back. Just remember that, Bobby. Larry Hawaii say is Anil bring the $34 million man to him. So he and Anil was friends. Like Anil partner. How much you get from that? Me, you know. But we know we can't give at that because right now Adolphus has gone to the great beyond. Yeah? He has been called to glory. I don't know which glory, but anyway. I'm going to deal with Mr. Roberts now. So they decide now they want to go after Penny Beckles. At one time, Penny was seen to be the heir apparent to the PNM throne, right? No, right? Because she would have challenged Dr. Rowley before for the leadership. She didn't get through. It was the same thing when Dr. Rowley challenged Patrick Manning, even though he didn't get through. Everybody saw him after that as being the natural leader to succeed Mr. Manning, and that did happen. But now they're going after Penny. So what was interesting, if you look at the footage of that rant, whatever that was from Anil Roberts a couple nights ago in Grandy, the camera at one point in time went on Mrs. Prasad Bisesa. And if you look at the expression on her face, you could tell she was not pleased with what Anil Roberts was doing. She was not pleased, right? You could almost read the expression on her face like it was saying, Lord Father, why it is I went in the political cemetery and exhumed this clown? Why did I resurrect this backside? Why? But it's too late now because I have endorsed him on so many occasions, but now he's taking it to the extreme. You see, because Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has respect for certain members of the PNM parliamentary arm. Not everybody. She and Dr. Rowley don't get along, and a few others. I mean, I could tell you that from having spoken to some ministers. They tell you, see, I don't want nothing to do with them. Right? If I walk in on the corridor and them come in the other direction, I don't like if me see them. So there is that. So when people like to say, yeah, all this you're seeing in parliament, but afterwards when they go in the tea room, they knock in glass. That doesn't hold for all parliamentarians. I could tell you that. But there are certain parliamentarians for whom Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has respect and some level of a relationship, right? We saw Marlene McDonald was one of those persons. And I suppose that is why Marlene didn't want to rat her out and send her up the river when it is that Dr. Rowley revealed that Marlene McDonald came to him and told him Kamla Prasad Bisesa came and told her that the police was coming for her, right? And she should have been facing a charge for tipping off. And it's only because Marlene refused to speak to the police and to give any information to the police is why Mrs. Prasad Bisesa escaped the long arm of the law. But she should have been on the UNC ticker tape as yet another one with a case to answer. So clearly, from the expression on Mrs. Prasad Bisesa's face, she was not pleased. But what she could do? He done up there, making a complete bag of himself as he always does. But you encourage that. Let me see if I find that here. We'll play that for you. For those of us who may not have heard it. I don't know, see. Anyway, I fed up on this Wall Street test. Another club. You're supposed to be a PNM supporter. He is not. Let me just say this while I'm looking for this, right? That Wall Street is not a member of the PNM. Has never been. He's a supporter. He's not a card-holding member. His application for membership has never been processed, right? And if he was, I would lead the charge in having this man expelled from the PNM for 1,000 years. See, he's such a clown. Anyway, let me do digress. Let me just find Mr. Roberts here. When you're dotish and proud. Get this here, right? He's another one. Apparently, Raghunath and them don't watch Douglaya politics. They don't watch Doubles and Coffee, or they've never gone on Facebook or any other social media platform and see the kind of nastiness that this man says about members of government, right? Calling Marvin Gonzalez Minister of Man, Stuart Young small pin and Paris tight pants. I don't know what it is, his obsession with men's midsection. And if there's something you want to let the population know, then go ahead. This obsession you have with Stuart, the small pin and Paris tight pants and all them kind of thing. And then the other day when it is Rishi Sukai was appointed, you're watching him when he come in the Senate and you find he looking a little shaky and whatnot and stuff. What it is, Anil? You have an obsession with PNM men? You're trying to get Dr. Rowley's attention, but Dr. Rowley not on that. He's not interested in you. Ease him up now. You and your leader. And she trying to sweet talk Pali. She telling Pali that the reason why Rowley obsessed with over you because you're good looking. Okay. Right.
Back by the Douglas until your nickname is Dollar. All right, Penny? But okay, Penny, I book you up, you wake up, you show signs of life. So let me apologize now. My mother always say, don't abuse the weak and so on, and those who are not as tough as you. So Penny.
His mother tell him to abuse the weak. Maybe if he had taken that advice, he would still be a married man. But anyway.
Great grande, big blood means big heart, big love, big community. And that's where I said, listen, Penelope Beckles, you're a member of parliament. If you're writing something in public, forget the green verbs now. The children reading this kind of no grammar thing. I said, girl, come on, do better than that. Well, I asked Penelope Beckles, I said to Penelope Beckles, I will give you a penny for your thoughts on those matters. And after she talked last night in a wake in Arima, you know the woman had changed for me. I said a penny for thoughts, the woman had changed for your boy. We will take the entire Arima Corporation because of Arima is fed up of Penny and the PNM. We will take Malabar North. We will take Calvary. We will take Arima Central. We will take Malabar South. We will take Tumpuna. We will take Arima West. We will take Arima Northeast. Straight up. But Penny started to talk about weed. But all the recreation ground in Sangre Grande is only weed. But Penny, how you talking about weed when you sit in a cabinet next to Sleepy, Sativa, Narcolepsy, Fitzgerald, Etelbert, Pumsite, Rasta, Hines? The whole cabinet of the PNM must be high from second-hand smoke. You're talking weed? People smoked out the PNM. People without the PNM. Rejection of the PNM is high on the agenda. So don't study Handel Penelope. Study the senator who wastes $500,000 of taxpayer money and fail all sheet exam. Study the $500,000 duns who come in for your seat in the PNM. And remember, always remember, because the people of Arima, all kind of people feeling like they want to try smoke because they want to get away from the reality of pain that is the PNM. They want to forget the bloodshed. They want to forget the lack of water. They want to forget the lack of jobs. They want to live in a fantasy land where there is no PNM. So Penny, slow your roll and always remember, Penelope Beckles, that a high will dissipate eventually, but green verbs live forever. Penny, penny, penny. They put you in housing. You have built a house, but you cut a ribbon to open mailbox. They put you in planning, and the PNM have no plan. So Penny, wheel and come again. Bite your tongue, girl. And don't come back by the Douglas until your nickname is Dollar. All right, Penny? But okay, Penny,
that is what the UNC offers you, right? If you're looking for comedy relief, go to a UNC meeting. If you're looking for amateur night at the Hawk and Spit, go to a UNC meeting, right? That is what they offer you. That is the kind of rhetoric you will get on the meeting. Come up on the platform and everybody trying to impress Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Let me see who could outdo. Yeah? Who can make a bigger ass of themselves for Kamla Persad-Bissessar. And the reason why she had the expression on her face, you know why? Is because she knows that there are persons who are sitting back, the persons who they're hoping, who are on the fence, and they're hoping will come and do like 2010 and give them the vote. Sit down and say, seriously? Well, you're for real? This is what politics has become. I didn't play the part where he tell Penny that the reason why Nian Gatsby Dolly was selected as deputy political leader, not her, is because Nian gave Dr. Rowley what Penny couldn't, right? Implying that Nian and Dr. Rowley having an affair. This is the same man who every time he gets an opportunity talks about how the female members of the cabinet would have gotten their positions by giving Dr. Rowley a piece. Yeah? That they had to sleep with Dr. Rowley. But Mr. Raghunath and his council, they may know about that. They never hear that. It's only the PNM violating, not the UNC. No, they are above reproach, like Caesar's wife. They don't do no wrong. Nah. So it's only the PNM and only the PNM, and we expected that. So Jack come up and talk about Colin, Marvin, Hill, and all of that, right? Then you have, well, that clown, he's the leader of the pack, and all of them just take the cue from that. But you see, this is what they offer you. That is what they call good governance. That is what they call good governance. So put us back based on that. So you go to a UNC meeting and sit down for a whole hour, 2 hours, and that is all you have to listen to, speaker after speaker. Speaker after speaker, come and giving you that. And come and tell you, yeah, you see the threesome, Jack Wood, Gary, Kamala, and Jack, the threesome. That is what you need to take you to the promised land. I'm trying to find this article here. Let me see if I find this article.
Chopped potatoes with salt.
Let's see if I find this article. I need to find that now. Just now. Warner, Dr. Rowley's a lost cause. Okay. I'm going to tell you something. Huh? All of you supporters from the UNC who seem to think that vote for Jack and all they're going to get money. Let me tell you. Jack won of 2010 and Jack won of 2023, two different people. So all who think Jack pocket real deep and Jack is a billionaire, let me tell you, see that extradition matter, legal fees beating him going and coming. Going and coming. And there are plenty of people who could tell you, properties selling like that, dirt cheap. Trust me, yeah, to get money to pay legal fees. So if all you figure that putting Jack back there, and I'm hearing a talk, right, that he intends to run for Shogunas West again. I don't know how that is going to sit with the Mahasabha and Dinesh Rambali, who is a big thing in the Mahasabha. I don't know how they're going to take that. But all the way in Shogunas West, who figure, yeah, Jack will come back and he'll give me money. We'll go and sit down there every Saturday and cry him a river. A litany of woes and tell him how we're suffering and we eating grass. And he will give us money. The money don't exist. All right? Indra Maharaj might start charging all a fee to come and sit down to see Jack. So check all yourself. Check all yourself, right? Don't, and I can't say he's inspired by Jack's return to the. As I said, I was a part of the ILP. I was a part of the ILP. I know a lot of things. A lot of things that I could talk here, right? Because it would have been said in confidence when Jack would have had meetings with us and so on. But as the Tobagonians say, do not take flambeau to see in the night. In the day, what you could see in the night. You just hear Jack said it. He went to Mrs. Prasad Bisesa and told her about the wrongdoing. And she told him have nothing she could do about that. How many ministers did Mrs. Prasad Bisesa fire? But let me go there. Let me pull this up. Y'all remember a boat called the Panorama? And let me show you all what is at risk with these people. And I mentioned this because since they only want to talk about general election issues and a local government election campaign, we could go there too. And because apparently some of you all need to be reminded of the things that happened between 2010 and 2015. And a lot of the players who were there between 2010 to 2015 are still there today and are licking their chops, even those who are not in the front line, who sit down in the back, waiting, hoping that they come back in 2025 so they could come through the Senate, right, as senators and come back in government and do the very same things that they did before, 10 times worse. Now they have the new cohort of politicians, right, that they need to school in how to thief. Let me remind you all of something. And I'm coming back to this procurement issue. The hypocrisy of the UNC. Let me play this for you. Get this here.
If you are from before the 1990s, you would have known the Panorama to be the inter-island ferry between Trinidad and Tobago. Have you ever wondered what happened to it? Where did it go?
We have to leave Trinidad and head to Greece in the Mediterranean. 25 kilometers from Athens lies the small port of Rafina. It serves some of the Greek islands. The Panorama sails from here to Marmaris 2 to 3 times a day. She still has the same name, the same color. It is as if time stood still. The Panorama was bought by the government of Trinidad and Tobago in 1987. After years of neglect and mismanagement, she was declared unsafe to transport a maximum capacity of passengers, and in 2004, she was withdrawn from service. Finally, she was sold for an undisclosed sum to the present Greek owners in 2010. Walking through the Panorama now, it is hard to imagine that she was once unserviceable. The Panorama was bought by the government of Trinidad and Tobago in 1987 for 114 million TT dollars. It was a bit of a secret how much she was sold for in 2010. I was told it was for her value in scrap metal. I was not satisfied with that answer. I submitted a request under the Freedom of Information Act. After many months of waiting, I received the answer. She was sold for $350,000 US, about 2.4 million TT dollars at the time. You could have bought a townhouse in West Moorings for that price.
I'm calling Jack Warner, the then Minister of Transport and Works.
Minister Warner never answered his phone. After a few attempts at reaching him, I realized that we don't need his response about what condition he found the Panorama in, or if $350,000 US was a fair price for her. To pursue him any further would be pointless harassment. Mr. Warner was just one link in a long chain of failure. In a way, I'm happy to know that this ship, which to me was always like Trinidad and Tobago's Titanic, still functions, still sails, and does what she was built to do: carry people in freight for leisure and business.
Right. That's what the Panorama is now. Who sold the Panorama? It wasn't Manning. It wasn't Manning at all. Let me get this here. Let me read this article for them. Right? Again, the big on procurement. Now, the procurement bill, as you know, deals with the state.
We could
Yes,
never
let me get this.
leave Mr. Whole freaking
I know you're not blaming
The government.
Nah.
Just now, right. So the government of Trinidad and Tobago, right, and the procurement bill speaks to government buying stuff. So, but it also speaks to the disposal of state-owned property, of which the Panorama is one example. I'm going to show you how they're so corrupt. I'm going to read this for you. This is a Newsday article dated Wednesday, the 10th of April, 2019, entitled, Update, MF Panorama sold for 2.2 million TT. The Panorama was sold for 2.2 million TT, substantially below the 114 million it was bought for, an environmental activist has disclosed. Trinidadian Mark Devertile, in an interview posted on the Papaboa Conservation Group's Facebook page, reports that he found out the ferry was sold for US 350,000 or TT 2.2 million at the prevailing exchange rate at the time through a Freedom of Information Act application. He is seen enjoying a trip on the vessel in the Mediterranean, and the Panorama, which served as the inter-island ferry in the 1990s, was bought in 1987 for 114 million TT by the NAR government. The Panorama was sold to a Greek operator in August of 2010. Here when August of 2010. By that time, Mr. Manning was done out of office already. I continue. Right. In 2016, at the time, the Kamala Prasad Bisesar's People's Partnership Administration was in office. In 2016, UNC Tabakit MP Suraj Rambachan had queried the sale, noting how much the ferry was sold for was not known only that it had been bought by a Greek operator, which put it back into service. Works and Transport Minister Rohan Sinanan yesterday said he did not know anything about reports that the Panorama had been upgraded and has successfully set sail in the Mediterranean, adding he preferred not to comment. Sinanan said, I have no information on that, so I cannot comment on that. My information is that it was sold sometime around maybe 2009, and that is all I can say. I don't even know what you're talking about. Listen to Wade Mark. Opposition Senator Wade Mark yesterday said the development was not surprising, but accused the ruling PNM of selling out TNT's resources for what he described as a song and a dance. So Newsday went to him, said, Mr. Mark, we're looking for a little comment from anybody from the UNC with respect to the sale of the Panorama that was sold for 2.2 million TT dollars. This is Wade Mark's response. So he tells them, 2.2 million? That is a song and dance. The PNM has been in the business, this is Wade Mark talking, of selling out the people's assets for a very low price. What happened with the Panorama is not shocking or surprising. Imagine we are being told through this video that the man was able to receive the information from the Freedom of Information Act. Wade Mark still talking, eh? It tells us as a nation that the government is selling our jewels without any proper analysis, assessment, or evaluation. If the government spend the kind of money that they did on the Panorama that this company did, we would have it operating on the Sea Bridge right now. The report on the Panorama surfaced as government is set to lease the Jean de Lavalette. So this is Wade Mark in response to the Express, telling the Express that the Panorama was sold for a song and a dance, telling us that the government who sold the Panorama was selling the jewels of the country without any proper analysis. So no analysis was done, no assessment was done, no evaluation was done. This is Wade Mark telling us this. This is what happened with the Panorama. Ah, boy. The PNM is in the business of selling out the people's assets for a very low price. What happened with the Panorama is not shocking or surprising. Of course, it's not shocking or surprising, Wade. It's not. You see how when mouth open, Tory just jump out? The same company that bought the Panorama, right? Let me get it here. Let me have it right. The Panorama was sold to a Greek operator, right? In 2016, let me see here. So the people came to Trinidad in March of 2010 to buy the Panorama. They made an offer, and Mr. Manning blanked them. They came back in August, after Manning was out of office, made the same offer to the People's Partnership. Kamla said, sold, take it and go. Take it and go. Manning said, well, you had to come better than that. Right? Ah, boy. See? And this is what we had to put up with. Manning say no, go from here. They come back in August. Kamla say yes. We go take that money. 350,000 US. After it was purchased for 114 million, they sell it for 2.2. Today, it operated. But under the current procurement legislation, that would not have been able to happen. Even the same water down legislation that they tell you, Rowley and them water down the legislation, you see what they do there? That couldn't happen. The same situation, again, with the Nikwan plant, the gas to liquid plant in Petrotrin, that I tell you about, right? When the deal was finally consummated with Nikwan and so on, sometime around 2017, 2018 there, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa went on a platform to tell you about Nikwan, and Nikwan was formed specifically to purchase the assets of the gas to liquid plant and all of that and thing, and this government sell it for a song and a dance and 10 million US and some shares and whatnot. She wasted down that sale, only to find afterwards that it was her administration in 2012 that sold the plant to Nikwan. Her administration, her Minister of Energy, her energy ministry sat down with the folks at Nikwan in 2012, hammer out the deal, the amount of money that will be paid for it and everything. When this administration came in 2016, all of the arrangements was already in place. Everything was already in place. The amount that was going to pay for it, all of that. But she's so dumb, right? That is when you're taking 5-day weekends and you don't have a clue what's happening in your government.
things selling and you ain't know nothing about it. Well, you ain't gonna know. If it's 5 days, your weekend is 5 days, how the hell you gonna know? And when you show up, it's just to sit down in Parliament for 5 minutes. You're going in your office, according to Gary Griffith, in the Parliament, you sit down, you rock back, you sip on something, to wet your throat. Because after she talk for 20, 30 minutes in the Parliament, the throat parched now, so she needs to go and wet it. And then you jump back in your car and you head to the savannah with the helicopter waiting to carry you home. So you have no clue what is taking place in your government. So the Ministry of Energy under her, right? Your Ministry of Energy, sold the Nikwan plant since 2012, made the arrangements and everything, and this government just came in 2016 and followed through on all the arrangements that your government put in place. And then you come to criticize and say that the government sell the plant for a song and a dance, for a nickel and a dime, that your government did. What does that tell you? Is that somebody who's ready to be the Prime Minister of this country again? So all we can hear is, I am advised. Let us move on. Well, they didn't get fed up of hearing that between 2010 to 2015, when every Monday morning is a different minister get caught up in a scandal. I am advised. I have asked the minister to submit a report, and when I review the report, then a decision will be made on what to do. You remember Cheryl Miller? When Fiona St. Rose Grace was the Minister of Social Development or something so? And they went in the office and take up Cheryl Miller and carry she in the madhouse and put the woman in the madhouse for 2 weeks because they say she mad. But then they want to come and talk to you about Brent Thomas and how the government and the police kidnapped Brent Thomas. That they went Barbados to take Brent Thomas and kidnap him and all of that, and they want explanation. But all you went to the ministry and take Cheryl Miller, kidnap Cheryl Miller from the ministry and went and put the woman in the madhouse for 2 weeks. Say she mad. 2 weeks. That wasn't kidnapping. No, that was perfectly all right. And you see, some leaders forget. The rest of us, we don't forget. And then Cheryl Miller had to come now to sue the state for that. I see Mrs. Prasad Bisesa talking about Dr. Rowley and some, let me get it here, right? With respect to Dr. Rowley made, let me get it. I'm going to quote it right. Where is it? You see, apparently her memory short too. Let me get it. Kamala slams Prime Minister on brain in prisons. Opposition leader Kamala Prasad Bisesa said it is terrifying that the Prime Minister can disclose that the gang brain in the nation's prisons is responsible for murder and mayhem in this country, and nothing is being done about this problem. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley was a guest on TV6 Morning Edition program yesterday, and he spoke with host Marlon Hopkinson. With respect to the crime, he spoke on the problem of the gang brain in prison being involved in the criminal network. In a news release, Prasad Bisesa pointed out that the Prime Minister is the head of the government and the National Security Council chair. She said his statement was frightening as he is telling law-abiding citizens that criminals who are already locked up are the ones calling the shots and are responsible for the murder and mayhem taking place in the country. Prasad Bisesa said if Rowley knows who the big fishes are and that they are in the prisons communicating with accomplices on the outside, the questions that arise are, what is being done to tackle the problem? How are these jail criminals conducting business? What is the status of the scanners and the jammers for the prison? Why are teams of law enforcement not sent into the prison to search every nook and cranny and seize devices that are being used? Have our intelligence services fallen apart, or are they being used only to spy on the opposition? Why is he and his government not working to intercept what is happening in the prison? I want to ask Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, in 2015, when there was the great prison break, you remember that? And prisoners who were part of that prison break, right? A policeman was shot, lost his life. The prisoners had grenades. Grenades. How did that end up inside the prison, Kamala? How did that prison break happen under you, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa? Did you ask yourself all of these questions that you want to ask Rowley now? Did you ask yourself all of those questions when that happened, madam? Did you ask yourself that? What did you say to the family of this police officer who was killed? Because of all of this that was taking place, the same gang thing that was taking place. Because I see it have a man who is now on trial for, well, not on trial, but is charged with the Dana Sitahal murder. And he has been in prison since 2012. Dana Sitahal was murdered in 2014. How that happened? You were Prime Minister in 2012. You were Prime Minister in 2014. So how a man who behind bars since 2012 could be caught up in this whole thing and be charged as being an accomplice to Dana Sitahal's murder in 2014? All these questions you're asking Rowley, you didn't see to ask yourself them questions. Sital was murdered. Maybe if you had asked yourself those questions, madam, the 2015 prison break wouldn't have happened. How did the grenade get inside there? Who carried it? And you had scanners and jammers then too? What happened? Your memory short. Your memory short, like you two need another 5-day weekend. People, I'll tell you something. Verse 14 is very important. Very, very important. I take solace in something that Marilyn Gordon said on Thursday night. Right? She said that the right-thinking citizens who are in the majority, they're silent. They ain't talking right now, but they will come out on August the 14th and speak with their finger. I am trusting all of you all to do the same. Because they tell you, oh, the PNM frightened and Rowley frightened. I heard Jacona say last night that Rowley should be running scared and all of that because he's back on the scene and Gary and all of that. Okay, right. But I know it is all you have to do, right? As I said, I have a lot of other issues to discuss, but we will save that for Tuesday. 770-1763. Feel free. May I turn off here? Right. Let me switch up. Just here. 770-1763. Right. Jenny.
Hi. I'm to all those who have been tuning on Facebook and YouTube. But you know, at the end of the day, I just have to tell people, and I keep saying it over and over, if we want a change in this country, if we want progress to continue, if we want our country to be recognized as a thriving society in the Caribbean, willing to make a difference, to move up to first class status, you could only stay with the PNM and Dr. K. Christopher Rowley. Whether you like him or you don't like him is irrelevant. When you look at what's happening with Moody's, Standard and Poor's, you look at the Americans are involved in themselves and helping us with crime fighting.
Yes.
Already 3 persons have been held under this new they have made gun running now a federal crime. Because Dr. Rowley would have told them this that we don't produce the guns in the Caribbean, we don't produce it in Trinidad.
Yes.
So guns leaving America is the ones that are here illegally and doing so much harm to our society in the Caribbean. And America has made that a federal crime because of that. 3 persons have already been held, and one is at Trinidad. You look at the response that Dr. Rowley got from the President of America. You look at when NASDAQ would have put up his name up in lights, and you see so many other things, how Howard University would have received and all that. And you tell me you're willing to throw away that to deal with a woman who they say is a drunkard, a woman who they say does lie, a woman who they say corrupt, a woman who they say has 5-day weekend, a woman who have people around who are questionable, who are before the courts on bail right now, whose name is implicated in human trafficking, who lawyers have been implicated in allegations of prison gate and all kind. Is that what we want for our society? To say it's a mother and a woman? Or do we really seriously want to go forward as a society for all races so that our children can enjoy? So that is what we have here. This local election is one of ethics and morals, If you allow the UNC to take control of all the corporation, 1 of the corporation, 2 of the corporation, and it means to say we are a society that has no ethics, have no morals, and we don't care.
Yep.
But we children to come. Some people do not take this slide, come out August 14 and vote resoundingly for the People's National Movement. All the PNM candidates to make sure the corporations are in the right hands, which is in the hands of the PNM, so that all government local reform will be carried out the right way and that we will start to live in our own community, in our own boroughs and our own corporation as first-class citizens, where we'll be able to have a hands-on as the burgesses in the way the money is spent that is collected by the corporation and the borough. So people again, August 14th, all you know what they have to do. Make have a blessed day. And everybody be safe. Love you. Have a blessed weekend. A blessed week ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good
Hey,
afternoon.
good afternoon, my brother.
Yes, sir, good afternoon.
Yeah, it was good catching the first few episodes of the real issues. Interesting that and good information coming out.
Thank you.
Particularly from Mrs. Gordon.
Yes.
You know, it was very interesting and so on. And you know, fact that can't be disputed. You know, and it gives you a perspective on Dr. Williams that many people would not have known.
Yes.
You understand? So that was good about it. Some good history. I look forward to it if it's possible to have Professor Freddie Ferdinand on if he is able to.
Yes.
Because he would offer another perspective, having been the PNM and then went into the bowl of the formation of the NAR and so on.
Correct.
So, you know, that would be a good perspective to it. You know, in terms of how he would have assessed people like Carlos and Phillips and things after leaving the PNM and that kind of thing. Onto these substantive matters, well, there's one concern I have no doubt, and that is it with the name calling. Wouldn't was it to be like another social media influencer who has to pay out money to the blue man,
right?
Which is boasting and happy about. Understand?
Yes.
But you know, when I talk about the duplicitous nature of these fellas, we admire. This is the man who lied and said and preempted Dr. Rowley's motion of no confidence in the government by saying he had a letter from the judiciary.
Yes.
And when the chief justice came out and said that is not so, he wasn't called upon to resign. But every day they want somebody to resign. This one must resign. This one must go. You know, and particularly the thing about the panorama is so glaring when you see the condition of the boat. But you know what is interesting for me? I'd like to hear people like Michael and Izette and so on, who are senior members of Seamen and Waterfront Trade Workers Trade Union, and who had membership on the board at that time that was steering the activities of the port. And you know, he's one of the principals in the company set up that cleans the boats and so on. We just hear his perspective on the fact that Panama was breaking out every 2 weeks or limping along with in 7 hours, like 11 hours, like the diesel girl thing. Yes. And why that would happen. You know, let's see his take on that. Let him come out and say that the buyers of the vessel and the gentleman who did before a request, that is all lies. Let them come out and say, man, come out and defend their duplicitous activities as trade unionists who want to better respect them. You understand?
Yes.
But the fact about it, brother, is that those of us, like you say, like you continue to say, Mr. Jenny, Professor Chan, Professor Yates, Brian, and those of us who are well ensconced in the activities that we know is propaganda, we know how we will be directed or come August the 14th. But you know what I liked on the last conversation with the members of the public was it, and for people to compare and contrast in these coming 2 weeks, Dominic.
Yes.
Watch how the Prime Minister engaged members of the audience and was able to call his cabinet ministers who were there to answer the question.
Yes.
And they answered the question in the case of Talwari and Mr. Cummings off the cuff, unscripted. They didn't have you didn't see them signaling to somebody in the corner to come over and bring a satchel or a bag with documents. No, they could answer. And you know why? Because the PNM and its members are about policy and bringing truth to people to show them how their lives could be improved. This is the kind of management we want. Like you said, I don't want to be here I'm advised or I'm seeking a report. These people could answer. The same way Mr. Gonzalez was able to answer when he was on your program. This is what we want.
Yes.
You understand? You know, and like I said on another frequency, the thing about it is that Minister Alwari and Mr. Cummings were speaking from a position of knowledge of what they know. Yes. However, we all know that if you have millions in ministries who would undermine the works and the work of government, what would happen, Dominic? These things wouldn't come to fruition, and this is something that we have to understand. There are significant UNC sympathizers in contracted positions who were kept on board by this wicked PNM government. Because you know why? In a time of steering the country straight, you could not have fired these people to increase the wage bill or the payout that the government would have to pay out, especially when a smiling governor of the central bank said sniggeringly that we only had 3 days to run the country.
Yes.
Incidentally, he would have won his matter, but what did he win? He only won what was due to him at the expiration of his contract. Nothing more, nothing less. There were no exemplary damage or compensatory damage.
Right.
You understand? But my brother, like I said, keep it going on the both fronts from this platform and on Synergy, and we will be there all along, ready to go and do what we need to do. Take care, brother, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Thanks again.
You too. Thank you. Hello, good afternoon.
Dominic,
Yes, sir.
what's going on?
I am good.
Dominic,
Yes, sir.
you gone from a 919.
Uh-huh.
Aisha resigned.
Uh-huh.
No one said Pastor Google gone.
Mm-hmm.
No people sending them pictures of Iowa hugging up the former Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on, Dominic? Hey, Dominic, I ain't called for that. I just put the tune at today.
Right.
Dominic, you see how Dr. Rowley know how to run to America?
Mm-hmm.
You want them to do all kind of la-di-da for him. Dominic, let me ask you a question. How come here go and ask for do to protect the borders? How come? Dominic,
Yes, sir.
don't answer that. I will leave it here.
All right. Leave it there. Because last I saw, in Florida, they're having a serious problem with immigrants coming on all kind of old vessels, right? From Venezuela, from Cuba, from Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, Trinidad and Tobago and all. And America have all the equipment that they need to patrol the borders, and they still have a problem. On a daily basis, close to 300 people from all these countries heading there. Brian, good day. Yes, Brian.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Dominic,
Yes, sir.
pleasant good afternoon.
Greetings.
Dominic, I want to apologize because I want to regurgitate some of the issues raised, or some of the compliments, I should say, raised by the caller before the last.
Yes.
A gentleman I've always said I have time for.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Dominic, this week, I think you outdid yourself on your television program, with your interviews.
Yes.
I mean, if we didn't learn, if people were not certain about certain things, should have learned a lot. It's for those of us who were listening attentively, right? Especially from Miss Marilyn Gordon, who is a treasure and a treasury of information.
Yes.
That many of us may have forgotten. As well as I would also like to compliment the Honorable Prime Minister on meeting something that he had promised the people of Palo Seco a couple of years ago, that he would come and meet with them and have a discussion with them. I want to compliment him. I also want to compliment the people of Palo Seco for the very good questions, intelligent questions that they did ask vis-a-vis local government reform and so on. I think it was very informative. I think it needed a lot more time. I wish they did have more time because as I thought it was informative, it ended too quickly.
Yes.
And I do hope that the Honorable Prime Minister would go to other areas such as Mayaro and other, areas on the extremes of Trinidad.
Right.
And, engage the public,
because many of them don't get to see him or talk with him on a person-to-person basis.
Yes.
So I hope he continues in that vein, not too far in the distance, in the near future. Dominic,
Yes,
let me
sir.
tell you this. I remember the comrade you were referring to was the former president of the Point of View branch. His name is Christian Jackson.
Right.
That's the fella.
Yes.
I know him. He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. To be honest, he is a nice guy. You could talk to him. You could meet with him and talk to him one-on-one and that kind of thing. You know. But I guess he has to follow the dictates of the President General. But Dominic, you know what is amazing and hurtful, Dominic? I will tell you this, and I want to remind some of the people listening. When the Honorable Prime Minister decided after lengthy thought and discussion to close down the refinery,
Yes.
I want to repeat it. Close down the refinery, not Petrotrin, but the refinery. It was because the refinery was losing money. And between 2010 and 2015, when they did the book, they amalgamated everything and make it look as though Petrotrin was making money. But the refinery was losing money. You understand? And I could remember the Faizabad Accord prior to 2010 election with Kamla Prasad Bisesa and Roger. When they shook hands and were happy, and many promises were made by the then partnership under Kamla Prasad Bisesa to the OWTU. Right? Only to afterwards to realize that they were dumped like a bag of rotten aloo. And Roger had to come up in Woodford Square with a mannequin of the Prime Minister at that time, because many of his issues were not being dealt with, and many of those persons who were under the OWTU, the Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the People's Partnership decided they were not going to deal with their collective bargaining issues. I remember that. And that same Roger used to come up there and talk Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Only to come now, after they met at the when I think it was they were outside of the it wasn't the Red House at that time. I think it was outside the where they had the former what do you call it, the Parliament.
The waterfront.
To be hugging up and whispering in the ears that Moti, don't worry, when I get back in power in 2025, I will give you the refinery. But he didn't get 2 chances, as you had mentioned, Dominic. He got 3 chances. Patriotic Energies got 3 chances to purchase the refinery. And on all 3 occasions, they failed to the extent where it was the OWTU was pumping money into Patriotic Energies. Apparently, it had no outside body to come and give them any sort of filling. But they got 3 chances from the Minister of Finance, and they couldn't come up with the money. You understand?
Yes.
And today, I have to listen to Roger and them meeting with UNC candidates and say they're working with them because the government ain't doing nothing for people, and the government this and the government that. Really? So them two licking up the vomit because Roger and them maybe get promised that they go get the refinery. So let me tell you something, When the Honorable Prime Minister closed down the refinery, he paid to the workers, and not only workers, but also temporary too, $2.73 billion in compensation. Many people, because in 1994, when we became Petrotrin, many managers, right? Many people became managers, and those managers were paid in 2018 millions of dollars to go home, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, Dominic. Millions of millionaires in this country from that refinery, from that effort by the Honorable Prime Minister, they were paid.
Yes.
There are millionaires in this country from that refinery, that effort by the Honorable Prime Minister in 2018. So
money and they're suffering and they're starving. Dominic, I am not asking you. I am telling you. People went home with millions of dollars in their back pockets because the Honorable Prime Minister was saying, listen, either I pay them or close down the refinery or the country will be downgraded to junk bond status. Which is more important, to pay off a few people or to let the country suffer? And he made a decision. And anybody in his position would have made the same decision because they were telling him, listen, we don't have no money because the finance minister said, Dr. Rowley, I don't have that money to pay. The $850 million that was due in 2018, August of 2018, approximately $5 billion TT dollars. Right? It's either or you do something or otherwise this country will enter junk bond status.
Yes.
And Dr. Rowley made a decision. It was difficult, yes it was. But he made a decision and he offered it to Patriotic. And up to today, Patriotic can't find 5 cents to pay for it. But Patriotic bring back with Tamla because she must be Westman he is. Don't worry, when we come back, we go get him. Let me tell you something. For that refinery to come back, if they don't have $6 billion today to fix that refinery, it don't make sense. And I am saying so. So all the Westmen in Roche is telling he that don't worry, we will start back the refinery. All of that is hogwash. So all we want to run with the UNC and work with the UNC as if the UNC is the best thing since sliced bread. Or you go ahead. Or you go on the same road we went down between 2010 and 2015. All this is playing over and over again, Dominic. We have been down this road before, but like some of us forgetting the history. Because if we could support fugitive Jack, if we could support corrupt Jack, Katie, I am sorry. If we could support corrupt Jack today, but then I understand where some people head is. But them don't care. As she say, it's not about country, it's about party. And I now understand what she was saying, what she meant when she said that. But I will remind Trinidad and Tobago, if all you want this country to survive and not go into the hands of the IMF, and don't be fooled once again by Pamela because she's good at it, go out on the 14th, get up off all your lazy butts and go and vote for the People's National Movement. It is the only hope. We are now in the throes of Moody's, of Standard and Poor's, who said no, people could do business with us. Do not let this go to waste. Go out and vote. I implore the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I am going to vote before 7 o'clock. Once I have breath in my body, I would have voted. Dominic, I want to thank you very, very much. Continue the good work, sir.
Thank
all
you.
the best. Get home when I get your home.
All right.
All the best to you, sir.
Thank you.
Hope to listen to you on Tuesday.
Yes. Let's see. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, man. How are you today?
I am good.
Enjoying the program. Good editorial.
Thank
Good
you.
contribution from my callers and, of course, the program with Marilyn Gordon.
Yes.
On Synergy, very, very good. I hope you bring other people. I hope you also bring this walking encyclopedia of the team and Purdy Pereira.
Yes.
That'll be very nice. But Dominic, I don't know, no? It is very hard for you and people like Sharon, Miss Davy, Pastor Gogo, you know, they're bringing information to us. And yet these trolls and them calling and also messaging on the live and giving you the real stress. And I think you need to be very more stringent with these people and try to bluff them, right? It is very unfortunate that these people bring us that misinformation. Imagine, to my surprise, because still I seen billboards confirming that inheritance tax. I want to find out why the authorities are doing it and tell them people to pull down that those so-called billboards that are going up all over the country.
Yes.
That is false information. And I think the government
take these people to court or sue their backside and take these billboards down because that is dangerous misinformation. That is dangerous propaganda and it needs to be stopped. And I'm also applying this to the so-called ministries and the Facebook pages because I decided to go on my thing to look at the weather. I wanted the page with the mirror weather. Unfortunately, I had the comment.
Yes.
And these people blaming the government for all this flooding and stuff like that and probably and the property tax and more people suffering. You don't realize that when they have the property tax, they will alleviate some of these flooding problems in the country. And it's getting ridiculous. Even in the military with the so-called highway from Valencia to Toco, the nasty comments say, oh, Mr. Rohan Burnett to transport drugs and new drug out. It could be that I want to find out where these so-called moderators and their admins of those state speech to block these ridiculous comments. It looks bad on us. It is getting ridiculous. And I hope people realize that the union and people decide on social media on who back when it comes to pulpit. The United States of America is watching us. And I hope when they take the German when all they're ready to leave the country and they start and the customer official will detain you and I say what going on X, Y, and Z. I hope you're ready for that tomorrow. I hope you're ready for that. I don't forget what transpired between 2016 when all that character nation was back to the country and that when the woman came General and it was an ATM machine. For people that lie and say that it's not Barbados and stuff like that. You remember them? You remember that thought?
Yep.
Sorry for you. You have a good day.
You too.
I was open to in a program. Please get an engineer to talk about flood politics so that people don't realize flood politics is very dangerous. I'm not going to talk about it tomorrow on the only form because the meeting last night was cancelled because of the internet weather.
Yes.
So I hope you bring somebody like that and talk about what are the causes of flooding because this year July got this wet got this temperature around the world affected by it. So we are talking about the flooding, climate change, building, people box drains. They talk about flooding, but it doesn't seem to be working.
Yes.
To alleviate the flooding. So if I can get somebody like that in there to talk about it and cut this nonsense, talk about this flooding and put the blame and this flood politics and to stop. You have a good day, Don.
You too. Thank you. Mr. Chance, you could call me back. Let's see if I have here. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, 636. All right, I don't know what happened there, 636. Probably didn't realize I was on, that you were on. See. Hello. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello, Dominic.
Hi.
Hi, Dominic.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
How are you good?
Good afternoon.
Hi, afternoon.
Dominic.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
happened to Philip Alexander? Is he going mad?
Long time.
I was fond of Philip Alexander. Is he going mad? I listened to a thing on Facebook. And that man getting and ranting and raging with some building and the government different taxpayers' money. The guy talking to him and he say, you can't put me on. Why the kind of people want to vote for to run this country? I can't believe that already. That man is rather ridiculous.
Correct.
If there are people who are looking to say they want to run this country, heaven help us all. Okay?
Yes.
Heaven help. Well, that man, before boy, that's not very disrespectful.
Indeed.
You have a blessed day and we chose safe.
Thank you. And of course, the caller is referring to Philip Alexander, who went down to Point Fortin Hospital yesterday and was behaving like a real madman. But I like to say, Dr. Rowley is a Raging Bull. But I don't know what term you'd use to describe that behavior that I saw on that live yesterday. Hello, good afternoon.
Dominic.
Yes, sir.
You know, I don't like to call twice.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But as you know, did I hear you say Ms. Gordon talked about the sleepers?
Talked about the what?
The sleepers.
Ms. Gordon said that they are the right-thinking citizens of this country, but they are silent. They are the silent majority.
That's right.
Yes.
That lady know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are the people who have determined who win election.
Yes.
PNM and UNC, they'll be talking to their base.
Mm-hmm.
The sleepers who have determined who win election.
Mm-hmm.
That they know what's going on, Dominic.
Yes.
You must bring her back. I will listen to her one day.
I will.
But I ain't called for that. I just put it through that is. Hey, Dominic.
Uh-huh.
Did you hear that Joint Select Committee meeting? One out of the two boats, Dr. Rowdy, boat of Aston, got damaged at the bottom?
No, I didn't.
You hear that?
No, I didn't.
Check it out. At a Joint Select Committee meeting,
Uh-huh.
the Secretary in the Ministry of National Security was in the hot seat. Paul Richards asked them, how did the boat get damaged? The freighter answered, Dominic.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out, you will see.
All right.
I will leave it here.
Thank you. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dominic.
Good afternoon, sir.
Dominic, it's Christmas in July.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. I see Gary have a new Christmas parang. If it say I this is I that. You never hear it?
Nah.
Ay. Your best commissioner was I. Ay. Rowley just so like I. Ay. Look back under me. Ay. Just don't ask me why. I'm gone.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chance, I saw you were calling me earlier. Yeah, so let's see what the time there was. 1:30. I can take a couple more calls. Where is that? So, right. Eric, you were calling me. You could call me back. Let's see here. 770-1763. Pep effect. Yeah, Alexander was behaving like a real madman down at town. Yesterday they went point 14. Mr. Chance. Hello?
Yes, Dominic.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yes.
Yes, I want to thank you for the time that you're spending educating and informing the people. Congratulations. I listened after today.
Yes.
The interview with Marlene Gordon, tremendous. I chatted with her afterwards. A tremendous thing you're doing here, getting all the people involved directly.
Yes.
And that is great. But I just want to make a small contribution to tell the people that from today is Sunday, this is voting time. This is voting time. All the work that Dominic and all the others presenters are doing, the goal of that is to get people to go to the polls and vote. And I want to remind you how important it is. It's important because a candidate can lose the election by one vote. And it has happened in 2019 in the Koke-Taruba seat. The PNM got 1,043 votes and the UNC got 1,042. The PNM won by one vote. That's in San Fernando. Yeah?
Yes.
That the point I'm making is, and it happened, as I told you before, and I'll say it again until the election, Anson Dennis lost a THA seat by 4 votes. All right? In Mafikin, in Mayaro, I tell you all these things because, this is important. Voting is important. Candidate lost the UNC by 50 votes, right? In San Miguel Northwest, a seat that the PNM had won in 2016, they lost it in 2019 by just over 100 votes. And that is the crisis, that is the challenge we have. And that is why my call this afternoon on Dominic's program, we must not let all the work, the research that all the people have done go in vain. The work of that research is not to give you marks in a test for us to go and vote. And everybody must have a plan, not yourself alone. You have to carry families and friends who you trust and so on, carry their help if you have transport. But at the end of the day, what happens, because I've seen the count already, I've been in it, and when the count is finished, then it's when you decide, and they count the votes. They don't count how many utilities, how many times you talk, no, they count votes. All these things are important. I'm not saying not important, but I'm impressing on you how important it is to go out and vote and encourage people from now to go out and vote. If they need help, if they need a wheelchair or something, you tell the coordinator, this person in a wheelchair. If you know your neighbor is in a position that they're vulnerable, need a wheelchair or need some support, you get in contact with the people in your area, let them know in advance, not the morning before, like, oh no, we have an idea, you find out. So you're encouraging the people that help you to go to the polls and vote, because the numbers matter. And that's my main appeal today. And I'll be doing that all the time. The main appeal today is to get people to go out and vote. And I'm stressing on these areas. I'm stressing on Sangre Grande Northwest, Sangre Grande South, Cora Paradise, Tacarigua. I can say that because I'm touching those areas. And right now I'm in the campaign in Tulapuna. And we are working, getting people out and vote. That's the issue. That's the issue now, to get people out and vote. And all of us can contribute to that by giving information to the persons who are in charge, find out who is in charge of the campaign. If somebody needs a wheelchair, get out there. But that is what is critical now. We know that Kamala, Jack, and Gary is a partner trick. You hear that? It is not, in 2010, it was a partnership. You know that, right?
Yes.
But in 2023, it is now a partner trick. And you're too smart, as the Prime Minister said. The right thinking people must do is a partner trick. And the way to reject the partnership is not only to talk, yes, it's good, but you have to put your finger in the ink. And when you put that finger in the ink, that is how you make sure and protect our people, our children, and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago from that partner trick. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you, sir. And I would just like to reinforce what Mr. Chance said. This song is singing about what happened in Tobago, what happened in Trinidad. Let me tell you, the only way what happened in Tobago could happen in Trinidad for the PNM is if those of you who support PNM choose not to go and vote. As Mr. Chance made the point, Hansel Dennis lost by 4 votes. Tracy Davidson Celestin lost by 21 votes. And when you look at a lot of the other districts that were lost by the PNM, less than 100 votes, in some cases by 60-something votes, 80-something votes. So when you're telling yourself your 1 vote don't count, and everybody else in your house have the same mindset, when it is that you see come down to it and people lose seat by 5 votes and 10 votes, and you say, well, I should have go in, or if my house had go, they would have win. None of that. The UNC is not interested in this election about the people and we'll do for the people. They're not going to do nothing for it. For the next 2 years at least, all you're going to be hearing is if they have no money. And we can't do this and we can't do that because the government, central government, starving the corporation for money. Especially when they come to hit you that nonsense in PNM corporations, they say because when the money comes, it is there for the executive to decide. Under the new system, the executive council will decide how the money is being spent. Right? But each council will come make their presentations. When they have the statutory meetings, go and sit down and listen. See if it is that your council really making representation on your behalf, or if it is that they're just giving you a 6 for 9 to hold and telling you, yeah, I raised it, but I'm in truth and in fact that didn't happen. Go and sit down and make sure all your eye make 4. So when they go in statutory meeting, you want to hear your matters discussed. Don't take their word for it, because plenty of them for the next 4 years, that is our work. Half of them who are not even employed and seeing this as an opportunity for them to get a stable salary for the next 4 years. That is their main motive and driver. They couldn't give 2 hoots about US oil, right? So now that is why Adrian Ali in the Chaguanas Borough Corporation, former councillor from Monroe Roadside here, now get plenty licks from UNC supporters, seeing him posting up pictures of road paving like that, and want to know how come this wasn't happening for the last 3.5 years. How come Ole was telling us that the central government was starving Ole for money? For the last 3.5 years, he didn't have the money to do it. So all of a sudden, the central government come and give the same UNC Council corporation money to be paving the roads that Ole couldn't pave in 2020, 2021, 2022. Where the money come from? That is what the people are asking him. So is it that you were playing politics all the time and mamagayan people? That is the question that is being asked. So don't take much up from there, right? So folks, it is now 1:42. Let me thank you all so much for joining me today. Always a pleasure. Yeah, but I see the my yard guy has shown up again. So I don't know who cuts grass in rain, but anyway. Yeah. So thank you all so much, and we will chat again on Tuesday. I'll do the live at 11, not 6:30, because Tuesday is a holiday. All right, let me just take this. Brian. All right, I see Brian going there. Yeah, so Tuesday being Emancipation Day, so I'm not getting up early. So we will do the live at 11. And I don't think we will, I don't think we have any program on Synergy on Tuesday night. So we'll have Wednesday and Thursday. I'm trying to get Minister Hines, so he just has to confirm which day he will be coming. Brian. Hello?
I just want to say this before you go, Dominic, very quickly. Last Monday, when they had the meeting in Makoya, UNC, Gary Griffin was asked a question on I-95.5 why he didn't speak, but he was scheduled to speak.
Right.
He said he didn't speak because he wanted to give time for Fugitive Jack to speak.
Uh-huh.
So I say, okay, I heard that. So I went back and I checked. Fugitive Jack spoke for 18 minutes about small pin and all that kind of stupidness. 18 minutes. So I want to ask Gary Griffith, is it really because certain people were going to speak and they said that if you are going to speak, they will not speak because they don't want you on the same platform? Because 18 minutes is neither here nor there. So come now when I told you, hey, you see, you sit on there and you keep your file in your back pocket because I'm not letting you go on the podium.
Yes.
In other words, what I'm trying to say is simply this. Even before they win anything or get anything, Gary is being put in his place by Kamala Prasad Misasa. And he has no choice but to listen and adhere. So to say that he is some leader and he is a partner, he is a partner. He is just somebody there to help her to win the election.
Yes.
He is absolutely nothing and he's being used. He's a pawn, just like Fugitive Jack. But to say that you give Jack time to speak with you, only spent exactly 18 minutes on the podium, that, sir, is a lie. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Well said. The only people that are fooling with that is their supporters, nobody else. Right? So as I said, folks, join me again on Tuesday, 11 o'clock. I see, let me just answer this. Dr. D. Chris Allen is asking, to what extent do you believe it's time for multiple days of voting to benefit a higher turnout and more engagement in the voting process? Well, I don't think, while it may be a good idea, judging from what played off with the PNM internal election and the multiple days of voting and the complaints that it had and so on. I mean, it is good from the sense that it would allow persons who, might be on the fence and, all right, let me think about it another day. Somebody might say, you went and vote yet? Go tomorrow, as the case may be. So it has its benefits. I don't think it is something that the opposition in Trinidad and Tobago is going to support at all. They're not going to, because they will come and say the PNM trying to gerrymander the thing and whatnot. And you'll have a whole set of bacchanal about where the ballot boxes are being kept. All kind of allegations and you're gonna be hearing. So I don't think it would work here. We want to be first world, but we still have a 10th world mindset. So right, so 29 Super C saying the meeting will be held once a quarter and you as a citizen can go into the meeting and inquire what's not been addressed. So that, I guess, that's the statutory meetings for the council. Let me see. Yes. Right, so Sharon says she's thinking I should invite Paris to discuss local government reform. I know Darian Marcel is working on that. And I think, yeah, by the way, next week, Saturday, I'm supposed to be in the barbershop with John and John from 10 o'clock. So, yeah, you all are free to come and listen in and participate in the barbershop next week, Saturday. Yeah. Right. So Jenny says the society is small and one day is good enough for voting. So we have different perspectives. Niabo says we must bring down the power on August 14th. The ancestors are watching. Somebody says, Deb says power have Philip and Gary. They're mad because they're never going to be PM. If you all haven't checked out, Valin says I'm beginning the dance. Well, I think that meeting is long overdue. So I look forward to the barbershop next week Saturday. Yeah, so again, right. Let me see here. Jenny says we voted and we voted. Our future depends on our voting PNM. So true. So on Tuesday, folks, we will chat again 11 o'clock, remember, and then Wednesday, Tuesday on the Real Issues on Synergy TV. Haven't filmed up my guest yet, but again, this should be another productive and informative week. So until Tuesday, have a good one.